gentlemen, we are going to get started, and out of courtesy to the person who has the number one card, I need, even if you're finding a seat, to be quiet, please. So please quietly find your seat. We've got a little speech for you. Okay, good morning. My name is Jamie Strauss-Clark. I'm a third-party consultant working for Whatcom County, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the State Department of Ecology to do this environmental impact statement, and I'm going to be moderating our discussion this morning. As I've said a couple of times, we have 4 hours to get through 100 comments at 2 minutes each, and we're going to be pretty tight. So my job is to make this a safe and efficient place for everyone who has a card to be heard this morning. So with that in mind, I'm going to go over some ground rules that we have for this discussion, and then we'll get started right away. First of all, I want to say on behalf of the co-lead agencies, we are glad that you're here and that you're participating in this scoping process. As I said, representatives of each of the co-lead agencies are here. We have Jeannie Summerhays with the Department of Ecology, Ron Wilcox with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and Sam Ryan with Whatcom County. Thank you also for joining us. We have a court reporter, Beth, here who's taking copious notes, and we have Wayne, our timer, over here with Whatcom County. He's going to be helping me keep time. And as I said, I'm Jamie Strauss-Clark. I'll be moderating this morning. My job, as I said, is to ensure that everyone who's holding a card this morning to make a comment has an equal chance to provide their comments. So for this reason, I'm going to provide some instructions and ground rules for how we're going to operate this morning. Before I get started with that, though, I want to say, in addition to providing comments in this room, for those of you that were not able to get a card or do not like to stand up in front of a microphone, there are several other opportunities to make your voice heard this morning. If you haven't already made a comment online, we have places throughout the building where you can make written comments. Also in the commons room next to this room, there's a room where you can make a comment into a recorder and it will be transcribed. So there are multiple ways. This is not the only way, and all comments will be weighted equally and reviewed equally by the co-lead agency. So there's no one better way to make a comment. I also want to let you know that state and federal laws do not require a hearing for public scoping. That is required later with the draft EIS, but for public scoping, this is not required. We are doing this format this morning, this hearing style format, out of response to the community, to the Bellingham community who asked to have this opportunity to speak in front of each other. To meet the obligation, we are required to provide a way for everyone in this community to have their voice heard, which is why we've provided these multiple ways for you to make comments. So as I said, making one into the microphone this morning is not the only way to make a comment. I do want to take a moment to remind everyone that scoping is designed to gather input on 4 topics. First of all, a reasonable range of alternatives. A reasonable range of alternatives, potentially affected resources and extent of analyses. Actually, can everyone hear me okay? Is the volume up loud enough? Okay, good. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm in such a rush to get you all in. I will slow down. Significant unavoidable adverse impacts and measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate the effects of the proposals. So those are going to be the most helpful comments, are ones that focus on that. I'm going to ask you to try to focus your comments on one or a few of those 4 topics today. Yes, I'd be happy to. I'm sorry? Yes, I will. A reasonable range of alternatives, potentially affected resources and extent of analyses, significant unavoidable adverse impacts, and measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate effects of the proposals. Okay? Is that clear for everyone? Do you need me to read it one more time? One more time. Okay. This is important, so I'm glad we're doing this. Slowly. A reasonable range of alternatives, potentially affected resources, and extent of the analyses. So extent meaning it could be geographic. That's an example of extent. Significant unavoidable adverse impacts and measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate the effects of the proposals. Okay? Is everyone clear? Great. All right, so now the ground rules. So as I believe most of you know, we have to accommodate a maximum of 100 verbal comments today, which is why we need to keep it to 2 minutes and no more than 2 minutes per commenter. And I am going to be super strict about that. I have a timer up here that you'll be able to see. It's going to make an annoying buzz when time runs out. And if you're still talking when that time runs out, I am going to ask you to finish your sentence and step away from the microphone. I am not a rude person and I don't like being rude at all, so please don't put me in that position. Please be mindful of the time, but I will ask you to step away. In worst case, I will turn off the microphone. We need to be able to make sure everyone who's holding a card has an opportunity to say their piece this morning. So that's it. And I know several of you want to be here no longer than 4 hours, so that's what we're going to do. Is everyone clear on those rules? Okay. The way this is going to work is I'm going to call your numbers in order. So I'm going to call 3 numbers at a time. Number 1 is going to be at the microphone. 2 and 3 will be sitting at this desk and chair over here. Now, in order for the court reporter to be able to get the accurate spelling of your name, when you come up to take your seat over here, I need you to fill out a card with your name on it. She's going to match that to your testimony later. Okay? To make it possible for her to do that, you need to print as legibly as you can. I have horrendous handwriting, so I would have to work very hard at that. But please do your best to print. We want to make sure we get your names accurate. One last point, I want to make sure that due to the fire code, we can take a maximum of 400 people in this room, which is why we have a counter out here. At some point, we'll probably have to close the doors and say we can take no more people. If you're done listening and wanting to yield your seat, that would be great because that would give other people a chance to come sit down. So do consider that if you've been here for a while. Last thing is, I'm going to need it to be absolutely quiet in this room so everyone can hear the speaker. And that means there can't be, and I normally love applause, but there can't be even any applause in here. Certainly no booing or hissing. If you agree with something the commenter is saying, I'm going to ask you to show that by raising your hand. You can even wave your hand, but please don't make noise. Okay? We're going to have a lot of different sides talking today. There's certainly going to be comments you don't agree with, but I'm going to ask you to please not boo or hiss. I will stop and ask it to stop. I'm going to probably ask a couple times, and then I'm going to ask the off-duty police officers who are here today to escort anyone who's disrupting out of the room. Because my job, again, is to make sure that everyone can be heard. Slow down. I'm sorry? Okay, I'm talking too fast again. I'm sorry. Okay. I am going to ask our security to escort people who are continuously disrupting out of the room. Okay? Because I need to make this a safe place for each of you to have your voice heard. Okay, and again, the transcriber will be recording all the comments. So let's get started. Once again, I'm going to call you 3 at a time, and I'm going to have the first person I'm calling come to the podium. The other 2 sit there. Make sure you fill out a card, and I'll pick that up from you. So let's have 1, 2, and 3. 1 at the microphone, 2 and 3 at the desk and the chair. When you come to the microphone, please state your name for the record, and we will start the time.
My name is Sarah Mosted, and thank you very much for this opportunity to talk with you and for holding this public hearing. I'm Sarah Mosted. I'm a board-certified internal medicine doctor practicing in Bellingham. I also hold a PhD in public health from the University of Washington, and I'm a mother to 3 young daughters and an active volunteer in the Bellingham Public Schools. Today I'm speaking on behalf of a group of 205 physicians in Whatcom County and Skagit County. Although we are a politically diverse group of professionals who live throughout Whatcom and Skagit counties, we were brought together by the fundamental concern for the health of the people in our region, our patients, our children, our neighbors, and truthfully, people throughout the state, as a vast majority of our population lives within 10 miles of the rail line throughout the state. As physicians, we're concerned that the increasing frequency of the very long trains at rail crossings may lead to delay in emergency medical services and to increased accidents, trauma, and death. Imagine for a moment that your spouse or parent had a heart attack, or that your child has had a life-threatening trauma, or that your house is on fire, and the ambulance or fire train or fire truck waits for 6 or 7 minutes at a train crossing. It could absolutely mean the difference between life and death. And sometimes it's longer than that because the trains stop. So we respectfully request that the EIS be expanded to include a comprehensive health impact assessment. And we'll submit a larger document as a group of physicians. With regard to the EMS, some principal questions we'd like to have examined would be, for how many towns and cities along the entire rail corridor are the hospitals located across rail lines from a major portion of the population? At how many at-grade rail crossings are there along the entire rail corridor, and how many people are affected at each crossing based on current and projected population as shown in relevant planning documents? how many of these rail crossings are unprotected? Thank you very much.
2, 3, and 4. 2, you're at the microphone. 3 and 4, you are sitting in the chairs. Please state your name for the record and we'll start the time. Okay.
Start clock.
State the name.
Hi, Walter Young here. Father, husband, grandfather, great-grandfather, veteran. I'm concerned about this project because I'm a commercial fisherman, been a retired commercial fisherman, and you people need to know that when they put in the Encalco dock and when they put that refinery dock back in the 60s, the first victim was the eelgrass. Foreign ships emptied their bilges at Cherry Point, and when they emptied their bilges, the eelgrass died off, and the largest herring run in the world went away. It never came back. It affects all my brothers and sisters fishermen because we're losing our resource out there. Another problem I have with this is that those freighters, those extra 300 they want, they're going to burn. They burn bunker fuel, which is the worst fuel to burn. And what comes out of the stacks every day out of one ship is equivalent to 16,000 cars on the road. So we're looking at almost 500,000 cars worth of extra pollution coming our way. I have my health concerns about all of our elders and all of our young kids because we're going to be breathing all of that stuff, and I would like that addressed. I would also like the SSA to address where are all these thousands of jobs they're promising. Where is it? Write it out. And all these millions of tax dollars that they're putting on TV, that's a lie. All that money is going to be an increased B&O tax for SSA, which goes to Olympia. Very little of it will make it here. I'm running out of time. Don't have a lot of time. I want to end with this. This is from my brother Cree Nation. It's a prophecy from the 1800s. And they say, when all the trees have been cut down, when all the animals have been hunted, when all the waters are polluted, when all the air you breathe is unsafe, only then will you discover you cannot eat money. Thank you.
3, 4, and 5. 3, you're at the microphone. 4, 5, you're at the desk.
My name is Julie Trimmingham. I'm a fourth-generation Whatcom County resident. My husband and I are raising a young son here because we know this to be a clean, safe, and healthy place to do so. My interest in the coal port is maternal. I want to know how such a proposal would affect my son's life, both directly and indirectly. I would respectfully request that the environmental impact statement include studies pertaining to public health and safety. What are the various forms of pollution emitted by coal trains, the coal port, and the coal ships, and how might these pollutions affect human health? Will the coal trains pose any safety hazards? Will emergency responses be delayed because of the coal trains? How will chronic exposure to train noise, especially the whistle blasts that wake my son at night, affect sleep, school performance, and overall well-being? How will mercury and other pollutions caused by the combustion of coal we export to Asia affect our air and water safety? I would also request that the EIS include studies that consider quality of life. My son and I often play at Boulevard Park, which, according to an analysis, would be blocked from vehicular access by both trains and additional rail siding. How might our enjoyment of this place we call home be impacted by our becoming a coal transportation corridor? How would a radical change in our regional identity affect our community and our opportunities? And finally, I would respectfully request that the EIS include comprehensive study of the long-term and global implications of coal combustion. The proposal to haul and ship coal from the Powder River Basin has one end and one end alone. The coal is to be burned. How will the combustion of coal exported via the Gateway Pacific Terminal exacerbate the problems of climate change and ocean acidification? How might climate change and ocean acidification affect the health, safety, and well-being of my son and everyone else who lives here? Thank you.
Number 4, 5, and 6. 4 at the microphone, 5 and 6 at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Steve McMinn. I live in Bellingham. I would like the EIS to address the cost of delays at rail crossings for businesses in the entire GPT coal train corridor. I believe that this project, as proposed, will cannibalize existing businesses, leading to a net job loss in the region. My own business would certainly be hurt. I operate a small sawmill, Pacific Rim Tonewoods, up the Skagit River. We make wooden parts for guitars. If you've played or looked at a Martin, Taylor, or Gibson guitar built in the last 25 years, we've likely cut wood for it. We pay family wages and benefits to our 26 employees. If I were using SSA math, that might be 150 employees. Half of our people commute across the tracks from Bellingham, Mount Vernon, and elsewhere at grade level crossings that are already subject to delays. When the trains come, everything stops. There's no way around. All of our freight, both inbound and outbound, moves through the same crossings. Further, we purchase most of our logs in Alaska and barge them to Smith Island near Everett, where they are transferred to land and loaded on log trucks. To access this port, log trucks must deal with another grade level crossing, one that is already very congested. Pacific Rim Tonewoods is only one small business 20 miles from the BN tracks. If I were to put a cost number to the additional delays that would be caused to just us by long coal trains, the number would be large. If we allow GPT's trains to shear us off from our working waterfronts and to obstruct the east-west flow of traffic in our several counties, the good jobs that we have now will certainly become fewer.
5, 6, and 7. 5, you're at the microphone. 6 and 7, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Dan McShane. I'm an engineering geologist. I routinely assess geology hazards. The impacts of climate change will increase the risk of two properties in Washington State. Even modest sea level rise will have a significant impact on shoreline flooding, shoreline erosion, and shoreline bluff stability. If this project is not considered a significant source of CO2, I have to ask what project would be considered. 11 years ago, carbon dioxide was considered as part of the permit process for state permit for a power plant in Whatcom County. Another plant in Whatcom County, at Cherry Point Power Plant, also considered carbon dioxide emissions in the permit process, and they fully were going to mitigate 100% of the carbon dioxide if the plant were to be built. It's important that that be considered. I would also like this project to consider the cumulative impacts of all the sites that are being considered as coal terminal sites, including sites in Oregon and British Columbia. But also consider the traffic impacts and the commerce impacts from rail. If we go back in time and think about opening up the American West, what Abraham Lincoln was thinking when the country was connected by railroad, I don't think they visualized the rail system that we have and we're visualizing then is equivalent to what is essentially turning into a conveyor belt of goods that head to China. Thank you.
6, 7, and 8. 6, you're at the microphone. 7 and 8, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Greg Walmont, and I'm a physician. I'm a pathologist here. I did a PhD also at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center, and now I'm the chair of the tumor board at the hospital. Tumor board is the weekly meeting where we review all the new cancer diagnoses of all the patients in Whatcom County. In 2012, there were 1,703 patients, which averages about 33 per week. I see firsthand the dramatic impact that cancer has on people's lives. My concern for GPT addresses cancer. In the last 10 to 15 years, there has been much medical research that shows that air pollution is worse than we thought for people. The effects of air pollution are not hypothetical. They are real and they are measurable. Many studies, some of which were conducted in the Seattle area, show significant health effects of exposure to everyday pollutant levels that are below national EPA guidelines. The data show a linear effect with no specific safe threshold. A recent study from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency states that the Puget Sound region ranks in the country's top 5% of risk for exposure to toxic air pollution. A study in 2010 by the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency and the University of Washington showed that diesel emissions remain the largest contributor to potential cancer risk in the Puget Sound area. A recent health assessment was done in Spokane to assess cancer risk from diesel particulate matter in the area surrounding the Burlington Northern Railroad in Spokane. And they concluded that there was a several-fold increase in risk to develop cancer in the neighborhoods surrounding the rail yard. So I request that the scoping include an analysis of the increased risk of cancer from DPM in terms that are easy to understand by the public. Because the rail lines transect most major population centers in Washington and Montana and Idaho, these need to be included in the analysis. From a physician's perspective, it would be unethical and irresponsible to exclude communities from the analysis that have no control over the decision-making process. Thank you.
7, 8, and 9. 7, you're at the microphone. 8 and 9, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. David Stahlheim. When you look at the determination of significance for this project, it has a list of all the elements of the environment that need to be studied in this EIS. What is missing out of that is any consideration of economics. So when we talk about jobs, we talk about the impact on the economy. There's no clear pathway in this environmental impact statement for that to be considered, and that's a shame, and it really needs to be added to this whole process. How it has to be added to the process is going to be complex a little bit, and we need to rely on our three agencies here and not on the applicants, GPT and SSA, to be providing the information and data to you. It's really incumbent, and we have to rely on our public agencies to do our work for us. So the economics, well, one of the things that is a criteria for this project is that this project will not impose any uncompensated costs on public services and facilities. That is in the county code. The county council, who doesn't, by the way, even have to hold a public hearing on this matter, will have to make that determination that there is no economic impact that's not compensated. So this EIS has to dive into all those issues: impacts on schools, transportation, transit, rail crossings, fire protection, EMS issues. What did I miss? There's a whole list of utilities, water, sewer. The whole thing needs to be considered. And you need to weave that through the EIS where you can under the environmental impact statement process. I'd also like to talk about the alternatives, the reasonable alternatives to this project. We need to make sure that the no action alternative, which you have not yet defined, means no action. We need to have a baseline of this project so we can study what the real impacts of this project are on the environment, on transportation, on all these issues. You need to make sure the no action alternative means what it says, no action. Thank you.
8, 9, and 10. 8, you're at the microphone. 9 and 10, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Margaret Mamelin. I'm a family physician practicing here in Whatcom County. Thank you for the opportunity to offer comments. The proposed terminal would mean additional long, heavy trains passing through Bellingham every day and every night. What effect would the noise from these trains have on people here and in other communities who live and work close to the tracks? I'm here to ask that the potential effects of noise and vibration be included in the EIS. Medical studies have shown excessive noise to increase the risk of heart disease and stroke, to raise blood pressure and constrict blood vessels with elevated production of stress hormones such as cortisol and epinephrine, and this can also cause irregular heart rhythms. How many additional heart attacks and strokes can be expected from the increased train traffic and noise? Who will pay the economic costs of hospitalization and time lost from work? Sleep disturbance from passing trains is also a concern. Frequent nighttime awakening and changes in the stages and depth of sleep can affect daytime alertness and worsen chronic health problems. Poor sleep contributes to obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease, as well as mental health problems. Even when people feel they have become accustomed to increased noise, studies show there can still be measurable physical effects on their health. Children who are exposed to increased noise have shown lower academic achievement and specifically in reading and problem solving, as well as concentration, emotional development, and motivation. Noise has been shown to increase irritability, depression, and anxiety in adults and children. How will this affect the well-being of our community? Noise impacts can be particularly difficult to mitigate. In conclusion, I ask that the EIS investigate fully the increase in frequency and amount of noise and vibration from this proposed project and quantify the possible health effects along with the social and economic costs that could result from them. Thank you.
9, 10, and 11. 9, you're at the microphone. 10 and 11, you're at the desk.
Hi everyone, my name is Dana Lyons. I'm a musician. I'm currently touring from eastern Montana all the way following the route of the coal train back to here and down to Coos Bay. And I met with 5 ranching families in eastern Montana who were fighting the coal train, fighting the coal mines. Went through all the cities are organizing the whole route, Idaho, Montana, Oregon, wondering when their hearings are going to be. 2 days ago I played Yakima. The Yakima Nation has come out against coal export. The Lummi Nation has come out against coal export. Going from the ranchers to here, let's just put it this way, both the cowboys and the Indians are against coal export. We've got them surrounded. We're going to beat them on this one, friends. We're going to beat them on this one. And the reason is, I can give you, there's a long history in America where the people stand up to big corporations and to bureaucracies. When our elected officials say, oh, there's no way we can do this. In Skagit Valley, when they wanted to put a nuclear plant there in the 70s, 2 mayors and thousands of people stood up. We beat that nuclear power plant. In Kauai, when they wanted to put in the Inter-Island Super Ferry, 1,500 Kauaians showed up there and blocked the dock. 200 people on surfboards circled that boat. The boat went back to Honolulu and never came back. They defeated the federal government and the state of Hawaii. And most recently, in Nebraska, with the Keystone Pipeline, the conservative Republican farmers and ranchers said, no way is that pipeline coming through our aquifer, because they understood that it would ruin their way of life, endanger their way of life. And we, in our region, we have an opportunity to do something wonderful for the world. And if we hang together, if we're firm, we will defeat this. Thank you.
10, 11, 12. No applause, please. Lots of arm waving, no applause. 10, 11, 12. 10, you're at the microphone. 11 and 12, please take your seat at the desk. State your name for the record, please.
Karina Hoyer. I'm here representing not only myself as a mother, I also run a business that employs 55 people, and I'm a lifetime resident of the Pacific Northwest. I'm asking you for 2 very simple things. The first is for you to study the cumulative impacts of all of the detailed impacts that are stated today. If someone asks for you to look at an impact on water quality, I want it looked at from Bellingham to Beijing. If someone asks you to look at the impact on our fisheries, on our air quality, on our health, I want the circle drawn not around the GPT site at Cherry Point. I want the scoping to take into take into account the impacts from here to where that coal will be burned. The second thing I'm asking for is something very similar to what David mentioned, and that is that when we consider the no action alternative, it's truly a no action alternative. I want to know what's going to happen to our herring stocks if this is not built. What's going to happen to our tourist industry if we don't start to ship coal through our town? What's going to happen to our property taxes, to our local businesses, to our waterfront redevelopment if we indeed succeed at stopping this terminal? That's what I want to know, so I can choose that instead of a coal port.
11, 12, and 13. 11, you're at the microphone. 12 and 13, you're at the desk, please. State your name for the record.
My name is Frank James. I'm a physician in the community. I've lived here for a long time. I'm the father of 4 kids and the grandfather of 3. And I'm afraid. I spent the last 18 months studying this issue and looking at diesel particulate matter in particular. It's very nasty stuff. When diesel is combusted, it forms a nucleus, a carbon core, and the toxins that are in that slurry that comes out of the smokestack then attach a variety of other things like benzene, like formaldehyde, like polymatic aromatic hydrocarbons. Really bad things. This is bringing 485 ships that are, some of which are the largest objects ever created by man that move to our community. 485 of them. Transits in our community. It's bringing a train every hour with 4 engines on it. That's 100 locomotives a day through our community. And they're burning diesel, which creates a huge amount of pollution. Now, I'm worried about my patients. I'm worried about my family. I've got written comments that will summarize most of that, but I want to talk about one process issue, and that is having all these people in this room and a much larger room next door that want to talk to you, that have been given 2 minutes and limited to 100 people is unreasonable. You're not bad people, but this is a bad process. And I want to focus on that. You need to listen carefully to people. The people that are here that I know are scared stiffness. Okay? And I'm not talking to them, I'm talking to you guys because you're the ones that's here in this board. You need to open up the process, you need to involve the community, you need to look at the science objectively, and frankly, this is rigged.
12, 13, 14, 12, you're at the microphone, 13, 14, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Tom Altair, Bellingham resident, 2 nutritional sciences degrees, member of the Autism Research Institute, faculty member, also member of the Scientific Roundtable of the Autism Research Institute. My concern is particulate matter, soot, and mercury levels increasing over time. We're seeing from research coming out of both Colorado and Oregon that the increase since 1984 is at a minimum of 29% of air particulate matter coming from Asia. The jet stream brings it here to the Pacific Northwest. My concern is that the mercury levels, as they will increase the risk for autism, behavioral disorders, neurocognitive decline in children. We do see that when children are exposed to mercury in an early age, they actually end up with more cognitive decline and behavioral disorders. As the mercury levels will climb in the particulate, and now there's an association between 15 and 30% of our air mercury coming directly from Asia. And as these coal-powered plants are actually burning, we will get that particulate matter in our neighborhoods. It will be in our children. My concern is what's going to happen to their brain development over time. We can lay over tox data sheets and see the autism incidence increase in areas of increased mercury exposure, including places like dental academies. So what's going to happen close to the areas that some of this particulate matter is going to be blowing off of coal trains, that it's going to be blowing from piles in our local communities? Are we also going to see an increased risk for autism as this mercury increases? So my concern is the EIS would definitely examine, as the heavy metals will increase, is that going to decline the cognitive function of our children? So they would need to test then the environmental impact of the heavy metals and how that accumulation would occur with the use of coal.
13, 14, and 15. 13, you're at the microphone. 14 and 15, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Peter Fraser. I'm the steward for the Nature Conservancy for Chuckanut Island, a 5-acre nature preserve. For most of my 48 years, I've lived on the shores of Chuckanut Bay, have rowed and sailed this part of the Salish Sea, and have been a close observer of its aquatic life. Just as I was raised on Chuckanut Bay, I raised my own children there, and hope that Frasers will always live on these shores. However, the middens left behind by the Native Americans who used to find plentiful shellfish and salmon in Chuckanut Bay are a stark reminder that we cannot take for granted that our children and our children's children will be assured this heritage. I'm concerned. I feel strongly that this EIS should address any and all risks that development and operation of the coal port at Cherry Point could have during its construction and the entirety of its operation on the aquatic life of the Salish Sea. The herring, the salmon, the orca, all parts of a chain of life dependent on one another, are all at record low numbers. The orca are already the most toxic sea mammal on the planet. The salmon are already threatened. The vital Pacific herring stock at Cherry Point has declined over 94% since 1972, the same year the Roberts Bank coal terminal began operation. Perhaps this is because this terminal emits about 715 tons of coal dust each year, and coal contains polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are carcinogenic to the Pacific herring and interfere with their reproduction. Note that the herring disappeared first from the spawning beds at Point Roberts, closest to the Roberts Bank coal terminal. Just as the orca is dependent on the salmon, and the salmon is dependent on the herring, our very way of life as Northwesterners, as well as our health and sustenance, is dependent on the integrity of the Salish Sea ecosystem. I feel great responsibility to speak.
14, 15, and 16. 14, you're at the microphone. 15 and 16, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Larry Hildes. I'm a civil rights lawyer here in Bellingham. And I want to talk to you about jobs. I want to talk to you about these jobs and the balancing of these jobs against the destruction of the environment. SSA Marine is a horrible, horrible employer. They are not good jobs. They are not someone to trust. We represent a group in Seattle called the Seattle Port Truckers Association. They are a professional association. They're not allowed to unionize because SSA Marine has made sure that they're not allowed to unionize. They are almost entirely East African immigrants, Ethiopian and Somali, and they are treated abysmally. They're not paid a decent wage. They're contract employees. And it comes down to things like bathrooms. Our folks are not allowed at Terminal 30 and Terminal 18, which are controlled by SSA Marine at the Port of Seattle, to use the restrooms. They are given porta potties out in the parking lots. Where have we heard about this for black people before? This is SSA Marine. This is who we're talking about. We're getting ready to file suit because they actually have their employees in Seattle beat up our folks when they try to go to the bathroom. And the SSA has been struck by the ILWU in Oakland, they've been struck by the ILWU in LA and Long Beach, and they have been struck by every single port they operated in Iraq as a military contractor. These are not good jobs. This is not mitigatable. They are not mitigatable. And balance that against the destruction of our environment, it isn't even close.
15, 16, and 17. 15, you're at the microphone. 16 and 17, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Naomi Bunis. SSA admits there will be more than 400. Okay. SSA admits that there will be more than 450 huge coal-bearing ships coming in and going out of Cherry Point and our Salish Sea every year for a total of 900, at least 900 more ship transits a year. That's 60% more transit than currently move through our already crowded ship corridor. Most of these are single hull ships. A collision in the narrow channel would likely be catastrophic to the orca whales, the salmon, the herring, and the eelgrass. It could wipe out the marine habitats for the many creatures now making their homes there. I ask that you study the risks of this eventuality and include a plan in the EIS for response and cleanup should this eventuality become a reality. Thank you.
16, 17, and 18. 16, you're at the microphone. 17 and 18, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Joan Casey, and my topic is measures to mitigate. I am so concerned about the liabilities regarding this project. I want you to determine the liability at every step of this process. Number one, when the coal is still in the ground, who owns that coal? Is it Peabody Mine? Is it the taxpayers? And when the coal leaves Powder River Basin on the train, is it Peabody? Is it GPT? Is it SSA? Is it Burlington Northern? Is it the financial backers at Goldman Sachs? Who owns the coal? Who is liable? When the coal arrives at Cherry Point, who owns the coal? When it gets off the train and it goes on the earth, who's liable for that coal or for an accident at that point? When it gets from the earth onto the vessel and is being transferred, who owns the coal? Who's liable at that particular moment? On the vessel, as it's going out to sea and it's in Puget Sound, and there's one of these catastrophic accidents that we're all so terrified about, who's liable? Is it the vessel or is it the owner of the coal? And who owns the coal? And once it's out at the sea, in the big ocean, and there's another accident, who owns the coal? Who's responsible for mitigating and repairing all the potential damages that could happen from this coal? Who owns the coal and where is the liability? Thank you.
17, 18, and 19. 17, you're at the microphone. 18 and 19, you're at the desk. Please make sure when you speak very close to the microphone, and please state your name for the record.
I'm Pat Babrick. I lived in this area for over 23 years, first on Lummi Island and now in Birch Bay Village. And during that time, I have thoroughly enjoyed boating, fishing, clamming, crabbing, whale watching, beachcombing, and everything else that this beautiful area so close to such a beautiful sea offers. Recently, on a flight from Calgary to Seattle, I flew directly over the coal terminal at Tawasin, and sticking out from the terminal, there was a huge black area in the water, and this concerns me a great deal. What is the coal dust going to do to the marine life that we have so abundantly, and what is it going to do to all the recreational opportunities we have in this area? I urge you to study these effects very closely, because I think it will affect our lives and our economy, and that it will cut down on tourists. And I think that it's a real problem that needs to be looked into. Thank you.
18, 19, and 20. 18, you're at the microphone. 19 and 20, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Mike Pretzel, and my wife Jo and I have lived in this area for close to 40 years. We live on Lummi Bay, and we also have spent time on the water. We've sailed in the San Juans, we've sailed across the straits in good weather and foul weather, and we've seen the effect of wind and the weather on not only ourselves in in our small boat, but also in larger craft that are in the area. The main concern that I have is one that I don't think has been addressed, and it has to do with the holding capacity of the anchors that are attached to these ships. These ships are 1,000 feet long. They have a considerable area that is exposed to the wind. The winds have been documented at close to 100 miles an hour in areas along the water. You have an unimpeded stretch of water in Rosario Strait going a long distance from south to northward up toward Cherry Point. We live only a few miles from Cherry Point. These ships are terribly vulnerable to winds of that type. The anchors that they use are all cast in China. The anchors have been known to break apart under stress. I think it is imperative that any major consideration of this issue take into effect the stress upon the anchors that are vulnerable and that are really not capable of withholding the kind of stress that we've seen.
19, 20, and 21. 19, you're at the microphone. 20 and 21, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Clara Lee Weiss from Bellingham. And I'd like to talk about an incident that happened on September 20th, 2012. And we were coming from Bellingham to Salt Spring Island, just crossing Rosario Strait, coming out of a total whiteout. And as our boat was coming out of this whiteout, we looked out to the right, and there was this pitch black mushroom cloud. And we checked our finders, direction finders in the map, trying to what was that cloud? And it was a coal cloud. And I had never seen one. I had seen pictures of them, but this time I actually experienced it. And we looked and watched, and I was in such shock, actually, that it took me a while to run down and try to think, camera, get down and get your camera. So I ran down and got a camera, and by the time I got back up there, we were watching this cloud dissipating from the area of Tawasin. So the coal terminal is just right near Tawasin. And we watched this black cloud dissipating into grayer and grayer and bigger coming right toward our boat, and watching it going all over the Sound, Rosario Sound. And my question is, I want to know what happens to that dust that comes out of an existing plant. We're going to have a plant even closer to us where farmland is to the east of the wind. All of that good farmland, the jobs that entail that farmland, all of the dust going all over Puget Sound, and what's happening. We've had a lot of speakers talking about what's happening to the water quality, what is happening to our fish, and all the jobs that entails. So we've got a lot of jobs that might go as a result of all this new coal plant. Anyway, thank you.
20, 21, and 22. 20, you are in the microphone. 21 and 22, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Eleanor Hines, and I've lived in Bellingham for 8 years now. I moved here from the East Coast, and I absolutely love it. I'm currently a grad student at Western Washington University studying environmental toxicology, focusing on regional risk assessment. And so I would like to, I'm also an avid outdoor recreationist, so I would like to voice that I additionally have the same concerns that everybody else has said here today. On top of that, I would really want to request that the recreationist impacts are looked at, because the coal trains will block off access to the water for large amounts of time, as well as the increased vessel traffic will also impact things like whale watching and kayaking and other outdoor recreational sports, and fishing included in that. I also would like to, as a toxicologist, the fugitive coal dust to be looked at. And the alternative, the surfactants that could be sprayed on top of the coal dust. It's been known that surfactants can be extremely toxic, especially to aquatic organisms. Scientific papers have cited that Roundup can be 10 times more toxic when surfactants are present than when just the quote-unquote active ingredients in Roundup are present. So I would really appreciate if that was accounted for in the EIS. Additionally, I would like the EIS to look at the cumulative impacts of all the different proposals that are out there for the other coal export terminals, as well as the Kinder Morgan tar sands increased vessel traffic, and how that would potentially impact this, because just looking at this one project proposal isn't enough when we know that there's other things that could interact and add on top of that. So thank you so much for your time.
21, 22, and 23. 21, you are at the microphone. 22 and 23, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Stephen Harvey. I'm a student at Western Washington University studying environmental science. Over a month ago, my mother and her friend were in a moped accident. I left her lying in a ditch, bleeding internally. By the time the ambulance brought her to the hospital, she had lost 3/5 of her blood. The doctor said if she had arrived 20 minutes later, she would have been dead. By the time she arrived at the hospital, she had lost 3/5 of her blood. The doctor said if she had arrived 20 minutes later, she would have been dead. In this scenario, a longer ambulance response time equaled increased probability of death. The equation of increased response time equals higher probability of not receiving treatment needed on time can be applied to many emergency medical response cases. In the EIS, I ask for a study to determine if there will be decreased ability to provide effective emergency response times due to increased train traffic. This study could include, but is not limited to, mapping out all areas between the coal train's origin and the proposed terminal site where emergency response vehicles have to wait for a train to cross. Then find the population of people who live in these areas. Using 18 and 24 mile-and-a-half long trains a day, traveling at speeds of 55 miles per hour and 35 miles per hour, what additional delays will emergency response vehicles face? 24 trains, because if the terminal is built, it can be expanded in the future. Using statistics of emergency vehicle response cases per population, I ask the EIS to address how many emergency vehicle response cases a year will receive a longer response time. The only way I see not to increase response time is to not increase train traffic. And I ask you all, if there ever needs to be an increase of train traffic, should it really be spent on coal?
22, 23, and 24. 22, you are at the microphone. 23 and 24, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Danny Neal. I'm a real estate broker in Whatcom County. I work in Whatcom County, San Juan County, and some in Skagit County. I'm deeply concerned about this facility, and I ask that a study be incorporated in order to look at the possible effects on property values. I've heard people say to me, well, it really only affects those big houses down by the water, and it's not that big a deal. It's a big deal in my book. Many people live here because of the quality of life. We attract people from all over the world because of our quality of life, and I'm deeply concerned about the effects this terminal could have on our quality of life. We're talking about building a very large new waterfront. There's been 6-7 years of work done on that. That is on the west side of the railroad tracks. We talk about large homes. Let's think about it a little more clearly. The Point Roberts boats have been moved because of coal dust. The facility up there has a program of washing houses that are covered with coal dust. I think we need to think about those things. We're talking about commercial properties that are on the west side of the tracks. How are those properties going to be affected? So it's not only big residential properties, it's commercial properties. It's not all the railroad tracks go up along the waterfront. They go through our county and they go through other counties. The number of trains, the traffic, the potential pollution, and just the total effect need to be looked at and assessed on the property values in our county. Thank you very much.
23, 24, and 25. 23, you're at the microphone. 24 and 25, you're at the desk. For those of you in the back, if you'd like to have a seat, there are plenty of seats up here, so please make yourself comfortable. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is T. King. Firstly, you need to do an analysis why nobody is here supporting the coal terminal. Why is all red people out here? The thing that I demand you do an analysis on, you can't mitigate. How do you mitigate an earthquake or a tsunami? What happens if what happens in Japan? What if there's a tsunami and earthquake and everything at that terminal is wiped out and goes in the ocean? Everything. All the chemicals it's used to process it, all of the surfactants, everything goes in the water. And you can't tell me that an earthquake or a tsunami is not going to happen. You can't do it. You can tell me in this EIS, you can tell me everything that this coal is going to do, but you cannot tell me that an earthquake or tsunami won't wipe it out. And it's possible. We live in the ring of fire where this thing happens. How the hell do you mitigate an earthquake that can open up the ground and put all this stuff back in after it's been taken out, after it's been treated with who knows how many chemicals? I mean, the burning and everything else, that's bad enough. But what happens if just water wipes it into our bay? We can't recover that. Have you thought about that? All of these disasters, but what about the earthquakes, tsunamis? Even a tornado is not uncommon. I'm not unheard of. These things, on top of all of the other problems this terminal will cause, all of the traffic in the bay, all of the emissions that it burns, the fact that jobs are going to China. There's just no good thing about coal, and you know it. Thank you for your time.
24, 25, and 26. 24, you're at the microphone. 25 and 26, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Virginia Malmquist, and I'm a sailor. I'm concerned about the impact this will have on the places that I love to be in the Salish Seas. Ship traffic is huge, and those are single-hull ships, and I want to know what would happen when one of them ends up trashed, whether it's an earthquake or a collision or a terrorist. There are a lot of different ways that a ship can get wrecked. I'd like you to explore what would happen if a ship were damaged to the eelgrass, the herring, the salmon, and those of us at the top of the food chain, or we think we are, the heron, or the people in the orcas. Additionally, I'm also a school counselor, and I work with children, and I'm concerned about the clean water and the clean air in this community. I'd like for you to measure toxicity effects that would happen on not only Lake Whatcom, but all the watersheds in this region, as well as watersheds around the world. The CO2 that coal carries is 24% of the world's contribution to CO2. And so what our contribution of increasing coal being burnt in this world means global warming, increased mercury, increase the serious toxins that the doctors have mentioned. I'd like to know what the health effects would be on the people of our community and the people of our world. This should be the reverse of the NIMBY. Don't do it because it would affect my backyard. I'm saying don't do it because it affects my world. It's not just my backyard that I'm concerned about. So I'm worried about water pollutants and airborne pollutants. I'm also concerned about clean jobs. We have a waterfront development that has a lot of opportunity for clean jobs, which would be, I don't know who would want to develop that with the trains there. And I'm worried about the long-term toxicity of the jobs at the terminal itself. Thank you.
25, 26, and 27. 25, you're at the microphone. 26 and 27, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Joseph Knight. I live near the town of Nooksack. I live near the town of Nooksack. Currently, 16 to 18 freight and passenger trains per day pass through Bellingham. According to the Washington State Department of Transportation, the main line route north of Everett is near or at practical capacity. The addition of 18 coal trains per day as proposed in the Pacific International Terminal's plan would exceed the current capacity of BNSF's main north-south line to Cherry Point. In a letter to Matthew Rose, the CEO of BNSF, Governor Gregoire, and others, Richard Ford, the chairman of the Washington State Transportation Commission, made the following comments. If significant shipments of commodities from the Rockies are added without BNSF making improvements in its rail network, the economic and environmental impacts would echo throughout the state. He further stated that multiple additional unit trains moving through communities at a greater frequency than today also may trigger the need for greater mitigation. You will, no doubt, hear more about the impacts of increased rail traffic from communities south of Bellingham. However, I want to focus my comments on the expansion of rail traffic along the BNSF rail line that branches at Burlington, travels east to Sedgwick-Woolley, and north of the South Fork and Nooksack valleys, and runs parallel to State Route 9 to the Canadian border at Sumas. This line connects to Cherry Point via the Canadian National Rails running through New Westminster, a route over which BNSF has trackage rights. Bellingham officials initially suggested this inland route as a remedy to the congestion problem posed by the single line running from Bow through Bellingham to Cherry Point. BNSF has verbally dismissed this option as impractical based on expense. Does that mean?
Of coastal waters due to the fugitive coal dust from the coal pile that would be at Cherry Point and due to the ship loading process. And I would like this to be scoped. In addition, I'm concerned about carbon dioxide emissions from burning coal in China and from coal transport and its effect on ocean acidification. I would like these impacts to be scoped. I'm also concerned about the contribution to climate change from coal shipped from a Cherry Point terminal to be burned in China. I would like these impacts to be included in the scope, and also the cumulative impacts of all proposed coal terminals on the West Coast. Thank you.
27, 28, and 29. 27, you're at the microphone. 28 and 29 at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Nancy Hoffman. I'm a lifelong Pacific Northwest resident. I live here because I love living here. I actually live in Mount Vernon. I have a granddaughter that goes to school in Burlington, and I have a daughter that works at Western. And so I do a lot of traveling between Mount Vernon and Bellingham, and very often, inevitably, I'm stopped at a lot of train crossings. Recently, I've been stopped at quite a few more because of the coal train. I would like you to consider the amount of idle time for the people that are stopped at the train tracks, because the line is so long, and all these people that are stopped, and they're using up a lot more gas waiting for the train, and so that's one consideration. I would also like to speak for elderly people that probably don't have as much of a voice. I have a friend that has COPD, and she lives in a retirement center that's right on the train tracks, and she said that every time the train goes by, she doesn't need to listen for it now. She begins a coughing fit when the coal train goes by, so she doesn't need to hear it. She feels it when the coal dust is causing her to cough. I'm also a grandmother of an unborn. I just found out I was going to be a grandma again, so I'd like to speak for them and what the coal dust and just the environmental impact has on unborn children. And I also have friends that work in China and in Mexico, and they have given their lives to try to help with health issues in those countries, and a lot of it has to do with coal. They try to help, if they're going to use coal, to use it so that it doesn't impact them as much. And we see in the United States that coal is not the healthiest thing to use for heat, and why are we then thinking it's okay to send it to someone else and make a negative impact on somebody else's health?
28, 29, and 30. 28, you are at the microphone. 29 and 30, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Dwayne Jager. I live in Bellingham. And I first of all want to thank all the expertise of all the folks that have come up here. I don't have that expertise, but I do have common sense. And what I see is that burning coal was a 19th century thing that fueled the Industrial Revolution. In the 20th century, we figured out that there's a negative impact, and so we started having environmental impact statements. But this is the 21st century, and we know that burning coal contributes to global warming. It's a serious and threatening negative impact on our health and environment. And today we live in the 21st century. We don't live in the 20th century. We don't live in the 19th century. And an honest 21st century environmental impact statement cannot ignore 21st century science. This means that any infrastructure that promotes the burning of coal must address the environmental impact of global warming. All systems are interconnected. Our health in Whatcom County is affected by burning coal anywhere on the planet. So building a coal terminal contributes to that impact. To not include the environmental impact in your scoping about global warming would either be dishonest, it would be politically motivated, or it would be dismissive of science-based evidence. So furthermore, environmental impact statement for GPS if the environmental impact statement for GPS seriously addressed this looming environmental hazard, there's no way that the GPS terminal should be built. The good jobs now and in the future are in developing energy sources that are not fossil fuels. Coal century is so 19th century. Be brave, don't just do what everybody's done in the past.
29, 30, and 31. 29, you are at the microphone. 30 and 31, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Logan McKay. I'm a landscape architecture student from Washington State University. I've grown up in the Skagit Valley all of my life, and I've spent a lot of my time hiking mountains and enjoying dramatic views of Mount Baker and catching salmon in the Sound. I'm afraid the Gateway Pacific Terminal is going to change that. Along the train route, there's over 12 cities that have a population of over 50,000 people. I want to know how many people are going to be affected all the way along the rails that will have the effects of coal dust. That a study by Norfolk Southern Railroad concluded that 26 tons of coal can be lost per train, which is leading to an average annual loss of over 142,000 tons all across the rail route. If all of the coal that is proposed to be exported through Gateway Pacific Terminal were loaded into dump trucks and placed bumper to bumper, the lengths of these trucks would be greater than the circumference of the Earth. This coal is choking our Earth. We need to figure out how we are going to protect our kids, my kids, and the kids after those, and how are they going to get the same experience that I did growing up here in the Pacific Northwest that we all should have for many, many years after this.
30, 31, and 32. 30, you're at the microphone. 31 and 32, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Matt Petrini. I am an organizer for Resources for Sustainable Communities. I'm here to speak to some of the potential marine impacts of this terminal. The coal terminal's emissions, shipping traffic, and runoff threatens our salmon fisheries and critical economic resources. Yeah, I can do. Salmon fishing jobs are extremely important in this county. They are a way of life, they are a livelihood for many people, and it's how many people in this community continue to feed their children. Invasive species in ballast water, physical disruption by ships and construction, runoff, coal dust emissions, and the threat of accidents all pose huge risks for our local marine ecosystem and the economic resources that our fisheries provide. The terminal site will disrupt over 162 acres of wetlands, according to the application, and these wetlands are crucial to maintaining water quality and habitat. I want the impact of on these wetlands to be studied, as well as the impact on the surrounding hydrological ecosystem. Coal ships are Cape class. They're the largest ships employed by mankind, and they navigate the difficult waterways of San Juan Islands. There will be 487 of them, making 970 transits every year through the Puget Sound waterways. We have to study the impact of this kind of level of traffic on our salmon fishing industry. Our salmon fishing industry is a $13.5 million industry in Whatcom County. It supports at least 2,460 jobs. That's over 10 times the number of jobs that would be directly supported by this terminal. If we use the same multiplier as the terminal proponents, it supports over 11,000 jobs in Whatcom County, which is well beyond anything that we will gain from this proposal. So it is absolutely critical that we study the impacts on our salmon fishing industry of building North America's largest coal export terminal at the Cherry Point Aquatic Reserve. Thank you.
31, 32, and 33. 31, you're at the microphone. 32 and 33, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Cheryl Crooks.
I'm a resident of Bellingham. I'd like to thank you for having this hearing today, giving everyone the opportunity to express their concerns. We've heard a great deal about good jobs now, but I'd like to ask you, what about good jobs later? I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, through which the coal trains roll several times daily. When they do, that town is cut in half. There are only two places where you can cross from one side of town to the other. The challenge at that time then becomes driving down the streets, looking down the streets. Can I get across there? Can I cross there? Can I cross there? Until you come to the spot where you can. And that town is struggling right now economically. When I grew up there, it was a very vital, thriving small town. Now it is struggling. It's a very sad thing to go back and see. I would like to request that the EIS study include a look at the jobs that will be lost due to the impact that this project will have on the train traffic in particular, because they have the access that it will eliminate from the Bellingham waterfront and downtown. Community-wise recently released a study about the net job loss, and I wish you would take a look at that. This project comes at a time when the Port of Bellingham and the City of Bellingham are trying to attract developers, industry, and other employers to revision and repurpose the Georgia-Pacific area. To revision and repurpose the Georgia-Pacific area. I would like to know also the impact that this project will have on our county's unemployment rolls and coffers once the construction is completed, and request that SSA be required to offer job training and placement programs for those who will be laid off after that time. Yes, I say, let's build good jobs now in Whatcom County, but let's also build good jobs for later too. Thank you.
32, 33, and 34. 32, you're at the microphone. 33 and 34, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Cindy Franklin. I'm concerned about the impact on our atmosphere from the eventual burning of these 48 million tons of coal that are proposed to be exported annually from this project. Burning coal is one of the leading contributors to climate change. This impact is significant, it's unavoidable, and it's extremely adverse. We're talking about the life support system of our planet. Please make sure this global impact on our atmosphere is studied. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to introduce two new listeners. We have Francis Eugenio with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Sally Toda with the Department of Ecology. They're listening now. And up is number 33, 34, and 35. You are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, I'm John Watts from Bellingham. Lived here 23 years. Been a member of the City Council. And I'm a retired chemical engineer who worked for corporations all my life until I worked for the public. I do have some concerns about the Gateway Pacific Terminal. It represents to me a corporate field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. And who do I mean by they? We're talking about up to 3,000 unit coal trains per year, each one at least 1.5 miles long. We're talking about almost 500 very large bulk carriers per year, each one somewhere between 700 and 1,000 feet long. And by the way, these very large bulk carriers burn a fuel that is much dirtier than coal itself. And in some estimates, it might be in the same order of magnitude of pollution, plus some heavy metals. I guess the point is that all of this coal is for one purpose. It's to ship as a commodity to China or other points in Asia, where it is sufficient to justify and fuel the operation of 8 1,000 megawatt power plants. That is the net effect of selling this coal from this terminal in 1 year. So I fear that this field of dreams could become a whole field full of nightmares for those who depend upon our ecology for their living. And that's even before the coal gets burned. For example, one major spill from one of these huge vessels, one collision, a derailment of the trains, a sinking, although white wire would create a single adverse impact that would be unmitigable. And therefore, I'd like to propose a fund of at least $100 million be set up by the owners to mitigate any problem.
Thank you. 34, 35, and 36. 34, you're at the microphone. 35 and 36, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, everybody. To the panel, and thank you for taking your time and being here. My family arrived from Spain in 1529 in this country. The Navajo were there before, and I love that tribe as well. We did not know where our country would take us, but we've come a long, long way. What tomorrow holds, we, these people, have the biggest burden of responsibility. I've been to many, many third world countries, and I can't change each and every one of them, but each and every one of those people in each and every one of those countries, my brother or my sister. In the year 2000, National Geographic did an article about the China buildings, but you're all failing to say that they imported Europeans and Americans to help them reduce their emissions. If you're not at the table, you have no voice. I would rather be in China and having the voice and changing the world to a better world for each and everybody, each child, each parent, each grandparent. We are one family. So if our family is doing something wrong, we can help them to go the right way. If we're not there to help these people learn to do it the right way, I believe that SSA, GPT, not GPS, has an opportunity to show the world how to do it correctly. Yes, you can disagree. You have that right. I was in the service, spent 4 years, and almost did 20. You have the right to disagree. But if you're not at that table, you don't have a right to talk. And we need to be at that table to help the world change. Corn can be done, wheat can be done, soy can be done. We can help the world in different ways, not just with coal.
35, 36, and 37. 35, you're at the microphone. 36 and 37, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Betty Kipp. I live in Van Zandt, Washington. Something I haven't really heard driven here is that Powder River coal is radioactive coal, so that's one thing to think about. I want to point out that we talk about CO2 levels and climate warming when really we could be thinking about heat as the conductor, and so that if you focus on heat, then black substances absorb all light. White reflects, black absorbs. So black, in essence, is heat sink. The density of the structure also affects. So I'm just pointing out that not only are these 80 acres, 80 feet tall, a heat sink, an enormous battery, a reservoir of heat. The train tracks and the trains themselves are mobile heat sinks. Just because the train is moving doesn't mean it's not a hot train moving. So I want you to look at that. It's not just the burning of the coal that's the problem, it's the coal itself. It's that the earth has been scraped bare, and the coal itself is absorbing heat, and the atmosphere will not allow it to get out. So the sun comes through, bounces to the coal, it's absorbed. Where does it go? It stays here, so the earth warms. And I want to just say that carbon and graphite's a lubricant. When I worked at a bike shop, we put graphite on our chains to lubricate them. The tracks covered with coal dust, well, I bet that's a little bit slippery. I would like to see that aspect examined as whether the graphite, the carbon, makes the train tracks more slippery. So it's hard to measure the heat sink idea, but what I would like to see is existing coal mounds monitored for their temperatures, surface, above and below, and compared to the wetlands that will be removed in the same way of measuring. Thank you.
Just a quick announcement, there are about 10 numbered comment cards available at the welcome desk. If anyone would have liked to make a comment this morning and was not able to get a card, you can proceed to the welcome desk and pick one up. I think a few people have turned theirs back in, so please feel free to go do that. It's going to be first come, first serve, of course. And now I'm going to ask for 36, 37, and 38. 36, you are at the microphone. 37 and 38, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Bob Agater, 78 North Point Drive, Bellingham, Washington. I'm proud to carry the Sierra Club logo and protect Whatcom this morning. But I'm speaking on behalf of my four grandchildren. I fear that we've eaten their lunch. 2 minutes is insufficient time to speak to the scoping issues that I intend to address. So what I've decided to do is to read to you the titles of those scoping comments that I will deliver by computer before January 17th. All of them are significant. Exporting coal is a major policy issue for the United States. The scope needs to be from the mines, where adequate restoration of the land is not possible, to the coal burning in Asia, where the mercury and other contaminants return to Lake Whatcom to pollute our water supply. Endorse the request for a cumulative impact study of the reasonably foreseeable West Coast shipping port proposals. This has been done on the East Coast. There's precedent for this. It's part of the intent of the Environmental Policy Act of 1970. Let's get on with it. Scope the draft EIS to include a substantial public health impact assessment. Issues have been cataloged by the Whatcom docs and spoken to this morning. Scope the health impacts of clag, diesel small particulate, exhaust, and of coal dust. There's been significant new studies of coal dust and this particular matter in the last 2 years, and current standards do not address these legitimate concerns. You need to address this. Scope copy, thank you. There's much more, and I pledge you will hear from me.
Thank you. 37, 38, and 39. 37, you're at the microphone. 38 and 39, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jeff Margolis. I live in Van Zandt, Washington. I want you to set aside the concept of a main line railroad and think in terms of systems, system security, and systems redundancy. Advanced industrial systems always engineer for contingencies, theoretical. I live and work next to the farmland route. I own and operate everybody's store. I've been there for 42 years. My business straddles the intersection where the rail meets SR9. I've been watching BNSF upgrade this rail, installing the heaviest gauge ribbon rail since last winter. Right now they're restoring ballast. The city of Burlington is receiving $11 million for bridge improvement. Canadian National Railway has recently spent $300 million on improvements to track between Sumas and West Shore. In the year 2000, the Cascadia Transportation Plan forecasted 47 freight and passenger trains per day coming up through this region before any dream of coal. Surely professionals are familiar with the Cascadia Institute, the Farmhouse Gang, the state of Washington's rail plans. The coastal route needs a pressure relief valve, and that valve is the farmland route through eastern Whatcom County. The Whatcom County is more concerned about adverse impacts in Deming than routes through Wyoming. Yesterday, headlines were from the Whatcom County assessor was questioning the impact of this on land values in Whatcom County. So take this farmland route a little more seriously, will you, folks? The portent is for overpasses to relieve vehicular delays. People spoke about medical emergencies. There are 9 critical crossings from one end of the county to the other.
38, 39, and 40. 38, you were at the microphone. 39 and 40, you were at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Christopher Granis, 701 Chuckanut Drive, North Bellingham. I was born in Seattle, moved to Bellingham in 1969. I'd like to address the cumulative, unmitigatable, unavoidable impacts of all of the coal export proposals up and down the West Coast, including British Columbia. Our house is on fire. Scientists tell us that Earth can maintain 350 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. It's now 390 parts per million and going up. Extra carbon in the atmosphere is causing ocean acidification. Coral reefs are dying all over the world. In Sandwich Bay, oyster spawn are unable to form shells due to acidification. When I was standing in line this morning, I was told to make it local. Well, that's one of the local connections. Ice sheets are melting at an unprecedented rate, threatening coastal communities. Storms, floods, droughts are becoming more severe and more frequent due to the excess energy in the atmosphere. Shipping coal to China is feeding the fire. Please consider in this scoping process the impacts caused by increasing CO2 in the atmosphere due to the burning of coal proposed to be shipped to China. The only reasonable alternative is no action. Thank you.
Okay. Quick announcement, if you have written notes with you, please leave them behind and that will help us with the transcription. Also, please do remember to leave your card with us. 39, 40, and 41. 39, you're at the microphone. 40 and 41, you are at the desk. Please leave amendments. Please leave your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Andy Basavi. I'm 23 years old. I lived in Bellingham all my life. Recently graduated from Western Washington University, and this is one of my favorite places in the world because of the outdoors that we all share. I think there are 2 things that the EIS should scope. One is NO2 emissions in Bellingham and other coastal communities and anywhere else along the railroad lines that are valleys or sheltered by mountains. On the Swinomish Indian Reservation, where they have a monitoring station for NO2, when trains idle, there are sharp spikes in NO2 within 3 minutes, and those trains are smaller than the coal trains we would be experiencing. And I believe in Bellingham this could have adverse effects as we are sheltered. The other one is industrial noise and its effect on breeding of mammals between here and the Powder River Basin. Although the railroad tracks will be cutting up the habitat between here and there, animals will be affected from the noise, and animals are averse to industrial noise, and this cuts their breeding habitat into smaller areas, and we spend a lot of money on rehabbing wolves or salmon and improving the ecology in these areas, and it seems rather odd to be spending taxpayer dollars on these things and then interrupting them at the same time. Thank you.
41, 42, and 43. I'm sorry. 40, 41, and 42. 40, you're at the microphone. 41 and 42, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Robin Levy, L-E-A, V as in Victor, Y. I agree with many of the things that have already been stated. I will try to focus on what has not been spoken of yet. I am a nurse. I live in Bellingham. I have concerns about health impacts, but the physicians who have spoken before me have covered those concerns eloquently. I'm also a birder. I would like you to consider the following significant, unavoidable adverse effects, and I have one reasonable alternative I would like you to consider. There is that serious drop in quality of life here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest due to the long trains going up full and back empty every day. It will reduce access and enjoyment of the coastline since that is where the tracks are. Boulevard Park and Larrabee State Park would essentially be ruined by the nearly constant train traffic. Increased vibrations from the rail cars could cause increased erosion in the steep banks and hillsides immediately adjacent to the tracks along Eldridge Avenue and Chuckanut Drive. Property values of these lovely homes and condos along Eldridge and just south of Boulevard Park will plunge once the train traffic starts due to noise, vibration, smells, and increased traffic congestion at all rail crossings. Northwest waters are home to thousands of migratory birds. An environmental impact assessment must include waterfowl, shorebirds, and raptors since the rail lines are so close to the shoreline. If the Dunlin and duck flocks are spooked by the increased trains, what will the peregrines and bald eagles eat? Eelgrass provides habitat for small fish. And great blue herons. The future needs to be assessed. And how about exporting solar panels? We make them right here in Bellingham. That's the alternative I want you to look into. Thank you.
When we get to number 50, we're just going to take a 5-minute break to give our timers and court reporter just a moment to use the bathroom. Number 41, you're at the microphone. 42 and 43, you are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Gary Coy. I was born and raised in Bellingham. I live just outside the city limits in Whatcom County right now. I want to quote something that's in the Washington State Park's website for Larrabee State Park. It's been there since early October. It was there yesterday when I checked. Current alerts: Clayton Beach access closed. The access to Clayton Beach is closed until further notice due to public safety concerns and to stop public trespass on private property. Previous access to the beach via unauthorized use of Burlington Northern Santa Fe property must be discontinued because of inadequate sight lines for pedestrians to see oncoming trains when crossing the rails and to access the beach area. I am not into conspiracies, but the timing of this just seems so weird. How will access to public beaches, parks, and shorelines be impacted by the coal terminal and the associated increase in coal train traffic? For that matter, what about any public land access along the entire rail route from the Powder River Basin to Cherry Point? And I would include those folks in Van Zant and Acme. We can't mitigate the negative effects in Bellingham out to the South Fork. If it's bad for Bellingham, it's bad for the South Fork. Now I want to finish with a quote from the National Environmental Policy Act, which created the EIS process in 1970, and it says that the nation may fulfill the responsibility of each generation as trustee of the environment for succeeding generations. That's our job.
42, 43, and 44. 42, you're at the microphone. 43 and 44, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Peter van der Veen in Bellingham. I worked for about 30 years in developing countries to help them increase their food production. This year, the production of wheat in Russia dropped by 20%. The Australian wheat crop dropped by 40% below projections. India suffered a 22% less rainfall, resulting in a 7.8 million tons loss of rice production. Rice production dropped in Cambodia, Korea, Taiwan, Nepal. In August this year, 80% of the United States had a drought condition. Additional coal burning is increasing global warming and thereby causing more frequent droughts and floods, which already increased world corn, wheat, rice, and soybean and sugar prices, leading to increased malnutrition and starvation in poor countries. At local level in China, there are areas where the people are protesting the construction of new coal plants. China is in the course of building a pipeline to get natural gas from Central Asia to China. Shipping and selling coal to China now will delay their shifting to natural gas from Central Asia and to solar powers. So what are we doing and what is SSA doing to mitigate the increased starvation and poverty in developing countries? And I hope that EIS will look into this.
43, 44, and 45. 43, you're at the microphone. 44 and 45, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Judith Culver. I live west of Ferndale in a beautiful agricultural and forested area, just 3 miles from the proposed Gateway Pacific Terminal. Thank you. I'm here today to ask you to extend the geographical scope of this project as far as you can. I value the clean air, the clean water, and the beautiful green surroundings of our area. This is one of the main reasons that my husband and I moved here 6 years ago. I have a heartfelt belief that we can do better. We can do better than an 80-acre coal pile and 487 Panama and Cape-sized ships in a valued marine resource area. We can do better than destroying the sacred sites, the burial grounds, and the valued marine resources of our Lummi neighbors. We can do better than provide a few jobs that will diminish over time. We can do better than transporting 46 metric tons by rail across 4 states, disrupting 121 big cities and small towns, and transecting agricultural areas and ranches. We can do better than destroying Montana and Wyoming with mountaintop coal removal. We can do better than adding over 900 ship transits through the delicate areas of Harrow Strait. Thank you. Thank you.
44, 45, and 46. 44, you're at the microphone. 45 and 46, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Nicole Keenan, and I actually drove 2 hours to be here today from Seattle. So I want to talk about 2 reasons why I want you to consider an EIS. One's local, one's global, and they're all personal. So I used to live 3 blocks away from the train tracks in Seattle. I moved only 3 weeks ago because the diesel exhaust pollution was so bad, the noise from the trains throughout the night were so bad, and the train tracks crossed my bus line twice, so it prevented me from getting to work on time, pretty much ever. And all of those things combined, and on top of the fact that the train tracks are actually across the street from the corridor where small businesses are in the neighborhood I lived in, Georgetown, Seattle, basically prevented a lot of businesses from being able to thrive in the way that they should. So I'll spend the second minute talking about the global reasons. I'm Filipina, and I still have hundreds of family members, yes, hundreds, in the Philippines. And every year there's typhoon season, but every year it's gotten increasingly worse, to the point now where water sources are so scarce that kids literally fight each other in the street to have water. It is so bad that I can't imagine that we could do anything that would impact the climate without considering what would happen to countries all across the world. The Philippines was part of the United States for nearly 50 years, which is partially why I'm here. And I think that we need to really consider the partnerships, long-standing, both economic and military, that our country has had with these countries, and look at all of the impacts that
burning coal in China would have directly on the Philippines and Guam, and Guam is technically still connected to our country. On top of that, I only have 5 seconds, so I'll submit my other comments written. Thanks.
$45, $46, and $47. $45, you're at the microphone. $46 and $47, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record. And do remember when you come up to sit, please fill out one of the cards with the correct spelling of your name. That will allow our transcriber to make sure that your name matches with your testimony. Please state your name for the record.
Osiam Asanasnat Tiaquis Chachash Kwakwalexem Nochlamesam. My name is Jeannie Fink Bonner. I'm from Lummi Nation, and I'm a survivor of the Great Flood. I want to start by thanking everybody that's here to think about the issues that will impact the land and the waters. And I'd also like to open the thought of how it'll impact my baby and how it'll impact generations upon generations to come. I was called as a witness to our ceremony that we had out Lummi at the Cherry Point site. That was an honor for me because our people, that's how we documented these things. We would call witnesses so that generations upon generations will remember it. And now my generation, I can pass this on. I can date back 165 generations to that land up there. I have family that fished those waters ever since I can remember. And the issues of how it will affect our environment are important to me. Even more so, how it will affect my culture is equally, if not more important to me. Because this is something that keeps me going as a person. It's something that holds my people together. And this will be wiped away for my great-grandchildren to come and their great-grandchildren. The issue sounds like a lot of it is the benefits is just jobs. That's what benefits us. There's many other ways to have jobs that won't affect Heshka.
46, 47, and 48. 46, you're at the microphone. 47 and 48, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Becky Campbell. I am a Bellingham resident, a wife, and I work at a small business in town. I ask that a full and very extensive studies be done on the effects of the coal trains, especially on health, mental, and physical of our community. This is significant for me because I have chronic health issues, and I walk a very fine line of being able to work and be a part of our community with a small business and not working. And if I don't work because of health issues, I would like a study to be done on the economic effects of that. Imagine all these people not able to work, having to go on a disability, having to be paid for because they cannot work. And I ask this is very important because so many people can get sick, and I'm one of them, and I know many that can't be here today that are in their homes because they cannot come here. And you will definitely be hearing from them. And I also want to read a quote that I'm sure that many of you have heard. And it says, "We cannot simply think of our survival. Each new generation is responsible to ensure the survival of the 7th generation." And this is important. These jobs might not be here in our 7th generation, but we need to really look forward and look what it's going to affect. And my last little bit, look at what we are hearing. We can show the world to do it correctly by having clean power and not having coal here. Thank you.
47, 48, and 49. 47, you're at the microphone. 48 and 49, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Tim Douglas. I was the Bellingham mayor for 13 years and then Community Trade and Economic Development Director for the state of Washington for Governor Locke. I have 3 things that I ask you to look very carefully at as we review this particular environmental impact statement. All of them are economic, and they all relate to the responsibilities that cities and other local governments have to provide the necessary transportation systems to make sure that our communities are successful. The first is we have many just-in-time industries now, the aerospace being a primary one right now. They are affected if their employees cannot get to work on time or if their materials can't get to the plant just in time for the production. I ask you to look very carefully at the impacts of this proposed project and what it would do for the transportation systems and the ability for just-in-time arrival of both materials and personnel. I also ask you to work with the Association of Washington Cities to look at the impacts that this project would have on the ability of local governments throughout the entire length of the coal shipments on their ability to provide emergency, medical, and fire services. It is critical that we can get people quickly to the scene of any fire or medical emergency. And there is clear indication that that would not be the case unless substantial improvements were made. And that brings me to my final point. The taxpayers should not have to pay for a private business that is profit-making. Therefore, we should be looking very carefully, and I ask you to do that in the EIS, at to what extent the cost of any improvements to take care of personal safety as well as just-in-time work and materials. Make sure that those are paid for, not out of the taxpayer's pocket. Thank you.
48, 49, and 50, and then after we do 50, we're going to take a very short break. 48, please state your name for the record. 49, 50, please do the pledge.
My name is Jenny Wolf. I'm a retired physician living in Skagit County, and I want to thank you for taking our testimony today. I'm speaking as a representative of people who live in an area that stands to see no economic benefit of this proposal and stands to lose potentially a lot. In Skagit County, we're a collection of small communities, many of which are transected by the railroad tracks. We don't have the existing railroad grade separations that would be needed to mitigate the traffic congestion problems that an additional 18 trains a day would cause, something alluded to by the previous speaker. And we belong to over 100 communities from here to eastern Montana and Wyoming, which stand to be divided into right side and wrong side of the track communities. These would be divided depending on where you live compared to where the schools, hospitals, workplaces, and business places that you frequent are. I respectfully ask that you include in your analysis what it would cost, what it would take to build the infrastructure, which none of these communities currently have, that would be needed to maintain our local economies and qualities of life, and where that money would come from. A single overpass, I'm told, can cost 10 to 50, that's $50 million, the vast majority of which would land on taxpayers' shoulders. One of our citizens recently asked a terminal proponent if the railroad or terminal builders would fund such needed upgrades, and the response was, we'd be insane to do that. It may seem that grade separations for traffic congestions in communities such as ours are the obvious answer, the obvious mitigation, but practically speaking, who pays for it? We do. I ask that you determine the real cost of this project and what the corporations that stand to make billions of dollars from it what they should pay for it if they're bearing the true cost. And I wonder if they think it's worth it. Thank you.
49, please state your name for the record at the microphone.
Hi, my name is Peggy Bridgman, and I'm from Bow, Washington. I live right close to the Bow siding and the Bow Hill Road crossing, and I can't sleep now. About 2:30 most mornings, I get awakened, my husband does too, and it's because the trains go through. And besides that, we live close to the Bow Hill siding so that when trains have to pull over to let other trains cross, they continue idling. Sometimes, I think one time it was for 3 days, it was a long time. It's for hours and hours at least, which makes it smelly and loud in the neighborhood. And then when the train passes and the car that's on the siding starts up again, you hear all this bang, 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 as the cars start moving again. So it makes it real difficult for us to get good sleep at night. We have a little rental house on our property, and our renter, who's been there for 35 years, says that if the train goes through, the coal train continues to go through at 18 times a day, that he's going to have to move. So that will be an impact on our ability to keep our place running. I'm just one small person, and I don't have a lot of expertise like many people here do today, but there are so many of us all along the trail, along the rail line between Wyoming and Cherry Point. There are a lot of us little folks who aren't influential, but we certainly will be impacted. And I'd like to urge you to take the noise into consideration. Thank you.
And number 50, please state your name for the record.
My name is Karen Blomquist. I'm a pastor theologian, and I live just outside of Bellingham. I join my voice with many of the others that have been raised here, but I especially want to focus on the issue of the crucial importance that the impact of shipping this massive amount of coal would have on the rest of the world, particularly over Asia, but beyond that, the global warming and the climate change that affects all of us. I've been a part of a group of spiritual leaders, people of faith from various traditions who have come together and increasingly been focusing on the fact that we need, out of a sense of our own spiritual connectedness with people throughout the world and with the rest of creation, to give attention to the effects that this will have on others. I think this also becomes very centrally an issue of complicity and what in fact would be the image that this area would have. Certainly our image right now is one that we are concerned about the environment and about the rest of creation. But having worked internationally, I'm quite aware of the fact that the rest of the world is also watching us and saying, how foolish really are they in terms of going back to fossil fuel dependency? I would hope that our image would not be one of continuing to go regressively when in fact much of the rest of the world, including in Asia, are developing a lot of ways of sustaining creation and moving beyond fossil fuel. So rather than having a gold-smudged besmudged image, I would hope that we would continue to maintain that tradition here in Whatcom County.
Okay, we're going to take a very short break and start back with number 51. When that clock over there says 15 after the hour, we're going to start with number 51. Does this phone over here belong to someone? It's me. Okay, everyone, please take a seat. We're going to start. Wayne, you ready with the timer? Okay, everyone please be quiet and have a seat. We're going to start again. Okay, and I'm actually sitting for a little of this now. 51, please state your name for the record.
My name is Lorraine Holcomb, and I'm an educator and a citizen of rural Bellingham, but most of all, I'm a citizen of the earth. And so I'd like to speak for all the people who are not able to be here to speak for themselves. I'd like that the EIS scoping hearing closely look at how burning the amount of coal that we would ship to China will impact not only the animals, which I include mankind all over the world, but also the plants and how they will be affected in the terms of greenhouse gases. Thank you.
And 53 and 54, you please take your seats at the desk. 52, please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Michael Baughman, and I have many concerns about turning Bellingham from a green town into a coal town, but I want to address two specific issues, and that really is emergency services and noise. I live on Cove Road in Bellingham on the west side of the tracks, and there's only one way in and one way out. There are other streets in my community that have the very same situation where there's only one way in and one way out. If you go a little south to Mount Vernon, you have a whole community where there's only basically one street in and one street out with the emergency facilities on the other side of the tracks. And I suspect this is true up and down the coast of Washington as well as in Oregon. There are about 18 to 20 new trains that will be going by our house if this project is approved. And with a 1.5 mile long trains, I understand it's going to be between 6 and 7 minutes per train, which will add 2 hours per day of services that will not be able to be provided. In addition, on one occasion, a train parked across the tracks for up to 3 hours, blocking any services. In the last year, my next door neighbor, who was 91, right before he died, had numerous occasions to have 911 emergency services. Just this last winter, we had 3 separate groups of people knocked on our door who got caught in the sound and while they were crabbing and needed emergencies. One group of which needed emergency services because they were so hypothermic. As far as the noise pollution, we can't even talk when the trains go by. We would ask that the EIS adds to a cumulative study of what the impact would be of this project on emergency services and on noise pollution along the West Coast, including Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia. It would really be a shame if so many people pay such a terrible price to profit so very few. Thank you.
53, 54, and 55. 53, please state your name for the record.
My name is Ann Botwin. I'm married to that guy who just spoke. And I am here to ask you to study the impacts of constructing a coal terminal and an 800-foot-long pier on the eelgrass beds at Cherry Point, which is also within a marine reserve. If this project destroys or seriously damages the impact beds, the eelgrass beds, it could adversely affect an entire marine ecosystem that depends on it. Without the eelgrass beds, juvenile salmon have no protective shelter and could die. And Pacific herring lose their spawning ground and could die. Seems like a small thing, but the Pacific herring are food for salmon. Salmon are food for orca whales and people. Without the eelgrass and herring, the entire food chain will be seriously jeopardized. Please study the impacts of lost or diminished eelgrass on the entire food chain. Eelgrass could be dug up, crushed, or buried in silt by the construction of the pier. And even if it's not killed outright, eelgrass needs sunlight to survive. The shade from an 800-foot-long pier and the turbidity in the water that's continually stirred up by ships' propellers will prevent the sunlight from penetrating. And if that isn't enough, the eelgrass could be destroyed by invasive species that are in the ship's ballast water. I'm really concerned about this. If the orca are forced to relocate because they don't have enough salmon to eat, the economic impacts of this project could be enormous and affect people's livelihoods, specifically. The commercial fishing industry, Indian fisheries, and
achieve zero carbon emissions by 2050. This is something that's assisted by state laws in reducing carbon emissions at state institutions. Students come to Western looking for an education that integrates ecological, economic, and social concerns. They know that our area of the country reflects these ideas in our local businesses, our recreation opportunities, and our general way of life. Our neighbor institutions, BTC, WCC, Northwest Indian College, also attract these students. Collectively, we offer degrees in terrestrial ecology, environmental education, salmon fisheries, clean energy studies, and others. Students know that Whatcom County is a place they can come to be prepared for a job that requires systems thinking and a long view. Given the type of degrees that our campuses offer, the types of faculty we employ to teach our classes, and together that our campuses are by far the largest employer in Whatcom County, what is the economic impact of this coal terminal on this employment? What is the impact of having North America's largest coal terminal on the sustainability ethos that draws students to Northwest Washington, to our degree programs, and the resulting investment of millions of dollars into our local economy? I can't imagine offering a divinity degree on the Las Vegas Strip. I also can't imagine the proposed coal terminal or the train that will feed it making it into college brochures anytime soon. Thank you.
55, 56, and 57. 55, you're at the microphone. 56 and 57, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Elizabeth Shale, and I'm a Bellingham resident and nursing student at Whatcom Community College. Thank you very much for taking our testimony today. I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just here with a few requests. I've chosen Bellingham as the place that I would like to raise my family. So with this in mind, it's important that I take the long view when looking at impacts to my neighborhood and my backyard. I request that the EIS be expanded to include the cumulative safety and health impacts, not just for the Gateway Pacific Terminal here in Bellingham, but along the entire proposed coal corridor from Montana to China. This could include, but not be limited to, emergency response times, diesel and coal particulates impact on our air quality here, and vibration and noise impacts. I also request that the EIS include the impacts of the no-action alternative, so we as citizens of the Pacific Northwest have a clear understanding of the cumulative consequences of either building or not building the entire coal corridor. Thank you.
56, 57, and 58. 56, you're at the microphone. 57 and 58, you're at the desk. Please do not forget when you come to the desk to fill out your name with your correct spelling in print so that our transcriber can get your correct spelling. 56, please state your name for the record.
My name is Brad Owens. I live here in Bellingham. I'm president of the Northwest Washington Building and Construction Trades Council. Our council represents approximately 7,000 construction workers in Whatcom, Skagit, and Snohomish counties. I'm also a business representative for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We have approximately 250 of our members that live here in Whatcom County. Additionally, I'm a 50-plus year member of this community. I was born and raised in Bellingham in Whatcom County. Our council is about putting people to work and representing working men and women in the construction industry, as well as being good stewards for our environment. We share many of the same environmental concerns expressed here today. We would like the socio-economic effects of this project studied with equal consideration as the environmental concerns. Please consider the following related to construction. We have approximately 30% unemployment in the local construction industry. This project would provide an approximate 2-year construction period. It would hire approximately 3,500 full-time direct and indirect employees if it's built out to half capacity, and approximately 4,400 direct and indirect jobs at full capacity. This project would bring into the state and local tax coffers over the 2 years during construction of approximately $92 million. Total direct, indirect, and induced full-time payroll over 2 years would be approximately $350 million. These are jobs that pay a good wage, provide health care and pensions for their families. Please consider the following related to ongoing operations. The family wage jobs in our community have been seriously eroded with the closure of Georgia Pacific in the recent past and the decline of our economy. Thank you very much.
57, 58, and 59. 57, you're at the microphone. 58 and 59, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Vicki Moyle, V-I-C-K-Y, M-O-Y-L-E. I'm a teacher, I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I would like to talk about the unavoidable negative and adverse impacts on our individual and community mental health if this coal project goes through. Unfortunately, these impacts seem to be the unavoidable and inevitable consequences built into the paradigm of a self-serving corporate capitalist system of whom BNSF, Goldman Sachs, SSA Marine, and the coal companies are charter members. This corporate profit system depends on our alienation from nature, our alienation from each other, our alienation from ourselves, and our alienation from our own experience. This is the definition of mental unhealth, if not downright insanity. The cumulative impacts of such a model actively works against mentally healthy communities. I was born and raised in Alaska, and I was in high school when the leasing of PET 4 began for the Alaska Pipeline. I watched the subtle but some systemic and cumulative negative impacts on community mental health by the huge unnatural influx of money and the culture of corporate greed status quo in that state. I do not want a similar fate here. I ask you to please extend the comment period. I beg you to please consider the mental and social impacts of this huge enterprise on what is currently a remarkable, creative, and healthily interconnected community. To destroy that quality of life and common trust and interconnectedness would be a travesty and cost us dearly.
58, 59, and 60. 58, you're at the microphone. 59 and 60, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Tom. I live in Whatcom County, Bellingham. I will speak to you about something I know certainly. I'm not an expert on anything really specific. I know buildings and indoor health, indoor and environmental air quality. But I will talk to you about my son. He lives directly next to the tracks. He has been affected exactly how some of the healthcare officials have spoken about. His concentration, his sleep habits, his developed dyslexia. All of this has come about since he has moved next to these tracks because of sleep deprivation, and he has also developed respiratory conditions from what I can only assume be particulates. So I'm asking the EIS to include along the entire rail system, not just here, to look at every household's occupants and the indoor air quality of those households and the health effects upon the occupants, especially the children, because it would be a tragedy to not include the people as part of the environment. That's really it.
$59, 60, and 61. 59, you're at the microphone. 60 and 61, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Doris Firm. I live in Bellingham, and so do my grandchildren. I have shared most of the concerns that have been expressed today, but the one I particularly want to address is air pollution. My grandson has a number of serious allergies, one of which is to dust. I also understand that asthma among children, which my grandson doesn't have, thank goodness, but has increased greatly recently. The diesel particulates that Dr. Frank James spoke to you about are one of my major concerns. They come not only from the locomotives that draw the trains, but from the ships in the harbor. And I would like you to please address that. I do not know of any type of mitigation, but that is my concern.
60, 61, and 62. 60, you're at the microphone. 61 and 62, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jenny Mighty Young. Good afternoon. I will be short, but it is not sweet. My name is Jenny Mighty Young. I moved to Bellingham 3 years ago with my husband. We were drawn by the clean air, wild salmon and herring fisheries, a culture of sustainability, and a community-oriented lifestyle. Recently, we were shocked to hear that our drinking water in Lake Whatcom harbors the horrifying evidence of heavy metal contaminants directly attributed to coal burned in China. Last month, while purchasing mulch on Slater Road in Ferndale, we encountered a mile-long line of vehicles waiting at a rail crossing for a coal train to pass through. I pictured an ambulance caught in that blockage, waiting for 100 coal-loaded rail cars to pass, and then again, and another one, and another one, and another one every day. I have a friend in Birch Bay. Originally, I felt envious of her, living so close to the water and islands of the Salish Sea, until she told me there was coal dust on the side of her house, and she realized her local community was breathing that dust. More trains going through would literally be adding injury to insult. These issues need to be addressed in your scoping process. Thank you for your time.
61, 62, and 63. 61, you're at the microphone. 62 and 63, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Bill Young. Good afternoon. Thank you for holding this public hearing. I'm deeply concerned about the proposed Gateway Pacific Terminal and its associated rail traffic. I strongly urge you to conduct a comprehensive study of the cumulative impacts on rail lines that the GPT's trains would cause, both within Whatcom County and along the entire rail corridor through the Northwest. These are significant, unavoidable impacts that cannot be mitigated. The reasonable alternative is no coal ports. The proposed GPT's numerous long and heavy coal trains would likely cause significant damage to rail line infrastructure, increasing maintenance costs and necessitating more frequent and extensive track repairs. Expensive new sidings, overpasses, and crossings would also be required to accommodate the additional train traffic. Without such improvements, rail safety would be seriously compromised, posing a significant risk to public health and safety throughout the region. The resulting taxpayer-subsidized rail improvements would place a heavy burden on already stressed local economies, diverting public funds away from much-needed infrastructure and essential programs and services. The taxpayers cannot afford to absorb such risks and high costs. Please heed the requests of concerned residents and produce a thoroughly scoped, programmatic environmental impact statement, including all rail-related impacts the proposed GPT and other coal ports would cause. Thank you.
62, 63, and 64. 62, you're at the microphone. 63 and 64, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Richard McClenaghan. I'm a board-certified family physician in Bellingham, and I'm speaking in my capacity as a primary care physician who daily treats chronic illness such as cardiovascular disease, asthma, and cancer. I'm also speaking as a member of Whatcom Docs, which you have heard earlier is a group of 205 local physicians who are unified for the purpose of insisting that this process, which you have been given the awesome responsibility for, include a rigorous and comprehensive evaluation of the impact to human health by this project. It has been a surprise to those of us that have educated ourselves about this that historically human health impacts have not adequately been evaluated in most environmental impact assessments. We respectfully insist that you perform a health impact assessment as an integral part of this process with qualified experts in the areas of human health that this project will impact. These include those from the following. 1, diesel particulate matter. I want to know specifically how much increased DPM will be present, not only average through the county, but more importantly, along the populated corridors that this rail traffic will be concentrated. I want to know, cognizant of the abundant evidence that scientific literature has of links to the DPM to cardiovascular disease, asthma, and cancer. How many increased sick days, hospitalizations, ER visits, and deaths will be expected with this project? Number 2, rail crossings. As a primary care physician, I know the importance of time when it comes to emergency services in matters of life and death that come down to minutes. The HIA must include specifics on how many crossings will be affected and for how long, and what effect that will have on our community's health. Number 3, noise. The health impact assessment must evaluate noise impact thoroughly, quantifying what the increased noise will be expected and how many individuals will be impacted by that. Thank you.
'63, '64, and '65. '63 are at the microphone. '64 and '65 are at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Alex Epstein. I'm a senior organizer for Fuse Washington. I'm here to urge you to consider the impacts of the cumulative impacts of all ports that are proposed, as well as the impacts and the contributions that they would have towards climate change. Since I was 18, I've had the opportunity to work with countless young activists from 35 different campuses across this country. I've worked with sons of coal miners in West Virginia and Kentucky. I've worked with daughters of port workers in Tacoma. I've seen a lot of different issues. I've run campaigns for presidential elections as well as for climate change issues, and I've seen that across this country there's one issue that my generation is willing to risk their life for, and that issue is climate change. That is the issue that we are going to be fighting for, and it's our generation's fight. We live in a global generation, and we're part of a greater global community, and we're sympathetic towards the needs of those all around the world. We see that our choices have serious implications around the world. The costs of the Gateway Pacific Terminal wouldn't be seen the first day when we extract that coal from the Powder River Basin. They wouldn't be seen the first year when we freight that coal to Bellingham or to one of the proposed cities, and we ship that to China. They wouldn't even be seen when my children are growing up. They'll be seen generations and generations to come, and there's no way for us to tell what they could be. But I urge you to look globally, to think of the ultimate implications and the contributions that the Gateway Pacific Terminal would have for climate change in our globe. Because I believe that if you look at the true costs of extracting, transporting, and burning that coal, you'll see that the costs and the risks are entirely too high. And I urge you to please consider those implications. Thank you.
64, 65, and 66. 64, you're at the microphone. 65 and 66, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jamie Douglas. I live in Birch Bay, so just north of the site where the terminal is proposed. I wanted to share with you my own personal impact statement or study I've done. This is my granddaughter. She's 11. Her name is Alyssa. Alyssa's bright. She's artistic, likes gymnastics. She also has asthma. I'm concerned about what an impact on her would be of having the coal terminal within 3 miles of where we live. I'm also concerned that if she had a respiratory event, how the train traffic would affect ambulance or getting her to an ER. Also, she loves to go down and play in our whole areas of resort kind of Birch Bay environment. She loves to go to the Sea Shop and get ice cream. I wonder about the trade-off of jobs from our tourist-like environment for jobs to export coal. It's hard for me to see people wanting to come to Birch Bay for a vacation and having to wipe coal dust off of their cars. I thank you for your time.
Is 65 here? Okay, we'll take 66. As 65 comes back, we'll try after that. 66, please, and 67 and 68, please come to the desk. 66, please state your name for the record.
My name is Kathy Bertola, and I'm a mother of 2 wonderful children here in Bellingham, and I'm a graduate student at Western Washington University. I work with the school district as a substitute teacher, and I care quite a bit about children and their development. It's really important to me. I love this place. I could live a lot of other places, and I have. I've lived here for 20 years, and I intend to stay here. I was part of a focus group for that SSA Marine sponsored. They never told us anything about coal. They just wanted to know how we felt about this terminal that might be built. I wish I'd known about the coal. I would have probably said something a little different than I did. But the big vision that came to my mind as a mom, and one of my children has special needs, is how many accidents are going to be, how much human life is going to be lost along the railway. So what I really want to have looked at is between the Powder River Basin and here, how many deaths occur along the railway. That's people walking, that's car accidents, every year. And then if we are going to, we need to project if more trains are coming through, how many deaths will result and how many injuries will result. And I want to see that information made public. We don't hear about all the traffic accidents that occur with trains nationally. We just don't hear about it. I think our awareness has been raised recently, and now I'm getting stuff coming across on Facebook all the time, but I want to see those numbers. I want to see them in the paper. Thank you.
67, 68, and 69.
Mary McDowell, Bellingham, Washington, homeowner and private citizen. It's a picture of my mother, one of the first women coal miners in this country. She died at 80. She did not have a black lung. This is the colliery tag from my father, a coal miner. He died at 52. He went into the mine at 8 years of age. He did not have respiratory protection. She did. They were both 200 feet underground. I am pro-GBT. Unless you're 200 feet underground, you have way more than you know to work with. I spent my childhood on the Pennsylvania seam. Trains in the mine were feet away from our house. My mom and dad both worked around, on, and near tracks, trains, and coal. I played in the lakes and rivers. I rode sled ride down the hill on the dirt bikes on the tailings of the mine year-round. Those areas are now golf courses, parks, and tourist attractions. My husband and I moved here in 1985 from the islands. Our livelihood has been dependent on fisheries, travel, tourism, and infrastructure. I have worked mere feet from the tracks for the last 17 years. Bellingham is what it is because of the trains, the coal, the fishing, the logging, and then tourism. I am the poster child of what could happen if you grew up around coal, and I've never been sick a day in my life because of it. I do, however, have PTSD from the outcome of 2 gas line explosions in the vicinity of where I live. We cannot survive on tourism and retail alone. We need good jobs, we need industry, and we need it now. Thank you.
68, 69, and 70. 68, you're at the microphone. 69 and 70, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Sears Taylor. I live in Bellingham. I
condo overlooks the railroad train. For the first 10 years I lived here, I was overwhelmed by the train noise, so I really want to live in a world where there is no train noise, where there's no train delays, there's no accidents, there's no disease, there's social justice, no animals are mistreated. Oh, wait, you can't help me with that, kid. That's not the real world. We live in the real world. I've sat through, I'm surprised there's 4 of us who spoke out again for this terminal. I asked your committee to wade through the National Enquirer-like presumption of knowledge that was thrown out here today and focus on what you can focus on. Train crossings, emergency call things that are local. What the racism against China that I've seen today is appalling. The Chinese will solve their coal burning problem. We don't have to. It's not your responsibility. So do not let this get caught up in an Al Gore global warming thing. That's not the issue. The issue are the local issues. Yes, can you get to the hospital back and forth? Yes, that's an issue. Are the trains spewing dust all over? This last comment about cars being covered with coal dust is complete nonsense. You have a most difficult job to not be stampeded by what you've heard today, to focus on the common sense issues. I would most benefit as a senior with no responsibility except money coming in from previous investments to shut down everything. Let me live in Disneyland, no trains. But I'm worried about the future, the kids that need jobs, and working as a waitress, hustling food for old people, is not the kind of jobs that Whatcom County needs. Thank you.
69, 70, and 71. 69, you're at the microphone. 70 and 71, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Peter Fry, Bellingham, Washington. I do not believe that it is in the interest of Bellingham, Whatcom County, the state of Washington, or the United States to mine coal in Montana and ship it thousands of miles by rail, then export it to China to come back to us as air pollution and cheap consumer products that we don't need. We are not some third world country desperate to mine our natural resources and sell them to some industrial giant because that is the only card that we have to play. We can and must do much better than that. Keep in mind, I am not opposed to heavy industry. We already have 2 oil refineries and an aluminum smelter in Whatcom County. Unlike the Gateway Pacific project, these industries import raw materials, refine them, and then export them as a value-added product that gives us family wage jobs. The only benefits the Gateway Pacific terminal will provide is a few jobs and money in the pockets of a few wealthy investors. The negative impacts of the Gateway Pacific project, not just for Bellingham or Whatcom County, but for the many towns that these trains travel through, include human health, natural environment, property values, quality of life, and local businesses. And I urge you, in your scoping of the EIS, to consider all of those impacts: human health, natural health, quality of life, property values, and impacts to businesses. Thank you.
70, 71, and 72. I just want to pause to make a quick announcement. There may still be some numbers at the welcome desk if you're interested in making a comment and get a number. So please, if you'd like to make a comment, there may be some numbers. Please visit the welcome desk and check in with them. 70, please state your name for the record.
I'm Pam Bosch from Bellingham, and my comments are from the perspective of a cultural creative, which doesn't necessarily fit your box of 4 categories, but that's kind of my point. Human beings are truly amazing. We can learn foreign languages, grow nutritious food, make beautiful music. We look back in time with telescopes into space, and we crash some subatomic particles together to try and understand the nature of the universe. When we imagine, we figure out ways to fulfill our dreams. The idea of shipping coal to Asian markets is not a dream of humanity. It is not an idea that results from thinking about the future and what will make our grandchildren thrive and our oceans full of diverse life and our support systems healthy and nurturing and generous. It's a plan to make a lot of money for a few robber barons and some shareholders. If you, whoever you are, were in charge of inventing the future, would you turn over your dreams for humanity to markets of slavery and pollution that deny our interdependence and that hasten our own destruction? Because anyone who makes a decision that allows shipping megatons of coal a year to Asian markets is choosing to value a quick dollar over a host of dreams. We could be working toward a future of clean energy, healthy ecosystems, and communities of people who collaborate to make life better. We should be doing that. We should not have to be standing here trying to justify our desire that our future generations be able to exist in a livable world. Yesterday's power source is oppositional to innovating for a better quality of life. Thank you.
71, 72, and 73. 71, you're at the microphone. 72 and 73, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Bruce Cray, and I have lived in Bellingham for 27 years. I live about 200 meters from the tracks for about 6 years now. I just want to start on a global sense that healthy ecosystems are vitally more important for sustaining life on Earth than healthy economies. And next, I want to say I'm honored to enjoy the miracle of life in the sacred homeland of the Lummi people, and I want to honor them. This GPT will be built on their most sacred land and will have a huge impact on the quality of the earth and the sky and the water on which they depend. For a little while, I would like to take a moment of silence for all the destruction that European Americans have done to the Lummi people over the last 150 years. Thank you. I'm infinitely opposed to this project from start to finish, from Powder River to China. It is not what we need as human beings to sustain life. Now I want to finish with a song. Mother Earth is hurting, heal her now. We are her children, we need her. Mother Earth is hurting, heal her now. We are her children, we need her. Mother Earth is hurting, heal her now. We are her children, we need her. Thank you.
72, 73, and 74. 72, you're at the microphone. 73 and 74, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Larry Blanchard. My wife and I were born and raised in Washington. We moved here about 10 years ago. And we moved here because this is the best spot in the world. I've been to 42 countries, and New Zealand comes close to this area, but not quite. We've got everything here. All outdoor sports are available. My wife and I do all outdoor sports, and we love it here. I have one question before I get started here. Where is our legislators? I've been watching the hallways, I've looked outside, I've looked inside. There's no legislators here to hear all this. They should be listening to this. It's overwhelming. What are they doing? They're on vacation until after the elections. Where's Larson? Where's Cantwell? Where's Patty Murray? Where's Erickson? Where's Vincent Wise? None of them are out here. Oh, there's one right there. Okay. Oh, you're not one. Sorry. Anyway, they should be here to hear all this. It's astounding. And I want to mention that I've studied the vast majority of coal terminals on the planet, And I just looked at 2 Australian ones this morning, and they were constructed with a force of 650 people. One was 600, one was about 650. So I don't know how we're getting to this 4,000 person mark to construct one. In Googling most of the coal terminals around the planet, 2 facts stick out. Fact number 1, the vast majority of coal terminals greatly expand their capacity once they're built. After they're built, they double in size, they triple in size. You can go on the web, you can see it. Tawasin has doubled in size, Prince Rupert, most every one of them. So I would like to ask the scoping committee to scope what happens if we jump from 18 extra trains a day to 36 extra trains a day. Is there a cap on how big this terminal can get? Thank you.
'73, '74, and '75. '73, you're at the microphone. '74 and '75, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Vince Lalonde, and I live here in Bellingham, and I own a small business with 2 locations. 10 years ago, we had, I was the one employee, and in the time since I've been the owner, we've been fortunate enough to hire 25 to 30 people at different times. And thanks to the support of the community, we've been doing well. And I wrote a whole bunch of notes, and after hearing the other gentlemen speak, I just wanted to kind of change and go off the cuff and waste my 2 minutes this way. My dad would always say to me when I was young, there might be a shortage of jobs, but there's never a shortage of work. And the work that we have at hand right now, our generation, all of us living right now, is to clean up the mess that we've and our forefathers have created. They didn't do it because they thought, they didn't do it because they were trying to waste our resources or pollute our waters or pollute our airs. They did it because it was a job, and they had the job and they didn't know better. We know better now, and we have to act on what we know. So I'm hoping that the EIS scope will include as wide a range of effects of this coal burning from when it's dug up to where it's burned. I'm hoping that this comment period, that anybody who gets up here can say, I share the concerns of everyone who has said every concern they have opposing it, rather than me having to read down and hit every particular bullet point. As a business owner downtown, I can say that we have a unique opportunity to keep creating a healthy and sustainable and economically viable downtown business area, and we have a unique opportunity with the ending of GP, and I want the EIS scope to include the opportunity costs. What are the real costs that will be incurred when you consider what we cannot do with our opening up of our downtown waterfront because of this project? Thank you very much.
74, 75, and 76. 74, you're at the microphone. 75 and 76, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Andronetta Douglas with 2 S's. And I live in Birch Bay. I moved up here 2 years ago with my husband, who's a computer architect with a large company. He works virtually. We had just opened our own business, which is a software research company. We could easily leave this area if the quality of life dropped. We would like you to look at what the economic impact would be of technology companies that are easily mobile, such as software companies would have, if we left the area due to the environmental impact. I'm also, previous to this, I had a history of 40 years as an RN, including intensive care in pediatrics and geriatrics. And I was a case manager for people with COPD and heart failure. I would like you to look at the cost in terms of human suffering from the health impacts. I have seen people severely short of breath. I have been their hospice nurse. It is very difficult to control pain from shortness of breath. Being on a ventilator is an act of human torture. We have to knock them out and paralyze them. So I really want you to look at, would you want to suffer this kind of pain and suffering for the few jobs that we will actually get from this? The human suffering is is a terrible thing. And I have taken care of babies that have died because we had to use such high pressures that we blew holes in their lungs because of asthma. So this is not a small thing to me. You saw my husband up here with a picture of our granddaughter, but hers is not nearly the suffering that I've seen as the babies that I took care of who had such severe asthma. Thank you.
75, 76, and 77. 75, you're at the microphone. 76 and 77, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Katie Fleming. I live on San Juan Island, and I am concerned about the increased risk of oil spills in the Salish Sea that these almost 1,000 more bulk carrier ships, some the size of the Empire State Building, will bring to our region. I am hoping that you'll study not only the increased risk of oil spills from the GPT ships, but also from the other proposed export terminals in our region, and making that a cumulative impact study of oil spill risk in our region. In addition to coal export terminals, tar sand shipping that could be coming down from Canada as well. We in the San Juan Islands will be in the middle of all of it, and I hope that you'll take a look at that. Thank you, and we'll see you next week too.
76, 77, 78, 76, you are at the microphone. 77 and 78, you're at the desk.
My name is Wendy Kudamash, and I come to you today as a resident of Bellingham, as a mother and as the grandmother of 2 young children. My family was drawn to this area because of the natural beauty, as well as the fact that the people who live here care intensely about the health and well-being of the community and of its environment. I'm a registered nurse, and I work as a community health person with pregnant women and newborns all throughout Whatcom County. I'm requesting that a health impact assessment be carried out in regard to the potential adverse health impacts of the proposed coal terminal, including the cumulative and ongoing risks to the health of our community, especially our most vulnerable members, infants, children, and the elderly. I have 3 health concerns that I'm asking you to address. One is, what is the likely impact of increased diesel particulate matter from the increased number of coal trains and ships on our air quality and respiratory health, including how many more cases of asthma and cancer are expected to result? What is the likely impact on our water quality due to coal dust from open train cars and from ships leaching into local waterways and increasing levels of toxic heavy metals, including lead, arsenic, and mercury? And will this result in increased cancer and neurological disease? Finally, what are the likely health impacts of the increased water and air contamination due to increased coal burning in Asia? We know the contamination from Asia arrives at our shores, and we are all affected by global climate change. This is our home. This is where we live and work and raise our families. We want it to remain a healthy community for years to come. Thank you.
77, 78, and 79. 77, you're at the microphone. 78 and 79, you're at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
I'm Dorothy Ann Cloud, and you see me with this button because I do support jobs, and I would like to see our community be better. We've been kind of going downhill. When GP shut down, a lot of people lost their jobs, and like, as a result of that, other people, their work slowed down, like the auto mechanic. People weren't bringing their cars in for 3,000-mile checkups, 10,000-mile checkups, but there was kind of a trickle-down effect. And what I would like the study to take a look at is like the economic impact of like maybe the trickle-up effect. The concern is, well, it won't really be local people working. I would like to see local people working. That's where I'm coming from. And I would like to see, good paying jobs. But the training for these jobs, those come from the local schools. So in other words, for like the tech schools where they have to bring in, so if you could take a look at kind of the economic impact in general of doing this. And then also many people spoke about health and safety concerns, and I'm not really personally in favor of the coal. I mean, is it possible to ship other things, you know, lumber and grain and, you know, other things that aren't so damaging, you know? Thank you.
Last call for 78 and 79. Okay, we're going to move on to 80, 81, and 82. 80, you are at the microphone. 81 and 82, you're at the desk. I'll give you a minute to come on up here. For the record.
My name is Dylan Thompson. I'm on the board of directors of the Fertile Ground Environmental Institute, a local nonprofit. I want to address an impact that I haven't heard addressed yet. It's not really a direct impact, but it's an indirect one that I think is relevant still, and it will be caused by people like myself who do not believe that the environmental impact assessment process itself is legitimate because it's corrupt, and who will take matters into their own hands if this terminal is in fact put into operation and stop it using any means necessary, whether that means putting their bodies on the line or physically dismantling infrastructure. Now, this might be a surprise to some of you, but I'm going to tell you why it shouldn't be. We've had an environmental movement, a modern environmental movement for the past 40 years. If we put the beginning at Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, published in 1962. We've had environmentalism in this country for half a century, and yet every living system on the planet is in decline, and the rate of decline is accelerating, and there has not been a single peer-reviewed scientific article that's been published in the past 30 years that contradicts that statement. What's happened over and over again is that environmental impact assessment is basically just environmentalists tutoring developers and industrialists on how to develop and industrialize in a more friendly way. And that's not possible, okay? Things are getting worse. Where are the migratory songbirds? Where are the salmon? Where are the pronghorn antelope of the West Coast? There are less and less forests, less and less fish in the oceans. We should not be surprised that people are about to take more militant actions when these things are being proposed and built. So I want, in a matter of public record, that I, for one, will not come out and speak against people who take matters into their own hands to stop these things. Thank you.
Last call for 81 and 82. Okay, we'll take 83, 84, and 85. 83, you're at the microphone. 84 and 85, you're at the desk. Do we have 83 and 84? I'm sorry? 84. Okay, you're next. I guess you are.
My name is Suzanne Ravelli. I live within a short distance of where the terminal will be built. And I'd like to reiterate what Dr. Frank James so eloquently said in the beginning, that this process really is a sham. And we are terrified in Birch Bay. But I will follow the process and ask that you please assess coal dust. My biggest concern is that there will be 48 million tons of toxic heavy metal laden coal dust dumped near my home. I don't care if you dump 48 million tons of peanuts near my home, I would be concerned. But this is a toxic substance dumped near my house. And I have a child, and I live in a retirement community. This is a social justice issue. It is being dumped by retired folks, people who live out in the county, and it is being dumped by a group of people who have already lost 98% of their population in indigenous culture. This is a huge social justice issue not to be overlooked. In Tawasin in 2001, they did a study. There were 715 metric tons of fugitive coal dust that were released into the air. That goes into the groundwater, the Salish Sea, the food we eat, goes into the livestock and the entire food chain. And so this is a very foreseeable and real problem. And unless SSA Marine has hired Santa Claus to pack that coal dust in his magical bag, then it will get into the atmosphere. There is no way that 100% of that coal dust will be contained and not get into the atmosphere. Also, I'd like to state that there was an Australian study recently released that those folks, I'm talking to you who are pro-coal terminal, you have a 3 times more cancer rate. And I'm sorry, I'm done. Thank you.
85, 86, and 87. 85, please state your name for the record.
My name is Richard Navas. I live and work in town, Bellingham. Every year, the cost of promoting climate change denial gets higher and higher for the carbon industry. Someday, that cost will get so high that they will say they've had enough. And they will pack up their jobs, they'll pack up their profits, and they will leave town. But they'll leave us with an immense cleanup, very expensive, huge cleanup, globally and locally. 100 years from now, our great-grandchildren will still be paying for the few jobs we may see today. We don't want those kind of jobs. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm chasing someone down here. Please state your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Hines. I'd just like to say in respect to our First Nations people, this discussion should not even be happening because this coal train is not going to go through Indian land. It is sacred land. We've done enough to our Native brothers and it's not going to happen. So just stop it at this point. I'd just like to say that there are a lot of words spoken here, but I'm here as a visual. Imagine every one of us looking like this as our coal trains go by 24/7. And I'm here as an auditory person as well. So here it goes.
1:20 a.m.
That's 1:20 a.m. It's not here yet. It's coming. You hear the rumbling. Spare you the rest of the details, but let me tell you, this is nothing like how it is since I live at 608 Boulevard, right down below my house.
87, 88, and 89. 87, you're at the microphone. 88 and 89 at the desk. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. My name is Mary Ruth Holder, and I live in Mount Vernon. I did not ask the previous speaker to speak right before me, but that's perfect. 7 years ago, my husband and I retired to Mount Vernon from Texas. We chose Mount Vernon because of its beautiful environment and historic downtown. We bought a house above Mount Vernon that is about downtown that is over 100 years old. We've made improvements to the house and the garden, as I'm an avid gardener. We already have 3 or 4 coal trains a day passing under our house going to Swassen. So my neighbors and I have experience, and this is our experience. Sometimes when the heavy and long coal trains come and they wait at night, they wake us up and they keep us away. When they come during the day, they drive us indoors. Sometimes I cannot garden. When the 18 more coal trains for the GPT come through, are we going to be able to open our windows in the summertime to cool our houses at night? I don't think so. Even friends visiting us this past summer complained about the noise, and they noticed our house vibrating from the existing coal trains. One day, my husband and I counted not just what you heard there, but 23 blasts from one horn on one coal train. Of course, it drove us out the back porch. Please conduct a detailed study on the cumulative impacts, including on property and the health impacts of noise and vibrations on me, my house, my neighbors' houses, and people and their homes in communities all along the rail line of 18 more coal trains for the GPT, plus all the existing rail traffic and the reasonably foreseeable future rail traffic. Please also study who will pay the costs of our damages and to mitigate this harm. Thank you.
88, 89, 90. 88, you're at the microphone. Please state your name for the record.
Must be a lot of short people around here. I'm Barry Wigger, Bellingham, Washington, and I was a senior environmental planner at the Washington State Department of Ecology for 26 years until I retired this March. And I spent a lot of that time looking at big picture issues on impacts of really large projects like that. This